Squamish for Tuesday, April 28th, held here in the Great Room at the 55 Activity Center. Holland Squallen, Clistukmet, Squamish Oakmeo. As always, we're gathered to do our work today on the traditional unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. Please be advised this council meeting is being live streamed, recorded, and will be available to the public to view on the District of Squamish's website following the meeting. If you have concerns, please notify the corporate officer present at the meeting, which would be Ms. Flambeau. Could I have someone move adoption of the agenda, please? Moved by Councillor French, second by Councillor Stoner. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So our main order of business here is the public hearing for rezoning 00004, the village on Bailey Street. Before we get underway with the staff presentation, I have a quick script to run through to orient everyone for this evening's events. So please bear with me as I work through that. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the Local Government Act requirements to allow the public to present and to provide submissions to Council in respect to District of Squamish Zoning Bylaw 2200-2011 Amendment Bylaw, which is for CD Zone 107, the village on Bailey Street, number 2671-2023. Everyone present will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard. We want to ensure that no one is discouraged or prevented from making their views known, whether speaking in favor or against the proposal. Therefore, I ask that members of the public maintain order and quiet throughout the hearing. Please do not applaud or interrupt any speech or action of members of council or any other person addressing council. Please ensure that your remarks are relevant to the matters contained in the proposed bylaw. This is not an opportunity for members of the public to have their questions answered by staff or by council. Any questions or points of clarification can be directed to staff by contacting the planning department. Council is here to listen and will not debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with the public or each other during the hearing. Members of council may ask clarifying questions following presentations. Please note that this public hearing is being recorded and web streamed, as I mentioned earlier, and will be posted on district's website. Media may be present and the public can advise the media if they don't want their pictures taken. Up to and as part of this hearing, the public has had opportunity to make submissions to council. If any submissions were received, they are available for review and have been included as part of the electronic agenda available on the district's website. So I'll now ask the planning department to outline what the bylaw is proposing, and then we'll get, that's where we'll start. So I will turn it over to staff to introduce themselves and run us through the presentation. Do you need IT assistance there? Okay, that's fine. If we just get a hand here, make sure we get things set up. We're good?
Thank you, IT.
Take it away. The floor is yours.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Council, members of the public. My name is Carrie Hamilton, and I'm planner for the District of Squamish. With me today are a number of district staff who have reviewed this project, including Jesse Fletcher, Manager of Current Planning, Jordan Foster, Manager of Environment, Brent McMurtry, Manager of Transportation, Jay Starnino, Project Engineer, and Jonas Velaniskis, which is our Senior Director of Community Development. I'll be presenting to you today Amendment Bylaw 2671-2023 for public hearing and third reading for rezoning file 000004 for 1331, 1251, and a portion of 1100 Bailey Street, as well as 38261 Cleveland Avenue. Collectively, it's called the Village on Bailey Street. And now we can't change slides. 1 second. I might have to call IT over one more time. My apologies.
That's okay. Once we hit our stride here, it'll be good. But this is the challenge with changing the normal way we do things. Oh, there we go. I think they've done things from over there.
Yeah. Are they going to manually do it? Yeah. Just in. Yeah, we're good. Good. Yeah. Okay, there's some, okay. This might be a little, we'll work with this, what we got. So for the purposes of public hearing, I will be presenting a brief background on the project and history of the site, a general overview of key information pertaining to the application, a summary of the zoning changes proposed to CD 107 since second reading, an overview of how each condition of public hearing has been met, a table of the voluntary community amenity contributions, which we call CAC for short, and additional amenities offered for this project that will be secured in the land development agreement. We use LDA for short for that. A summary of adoption conditions followed by staff recommendations for council consideration this evening. Next slide. So dating back to 1967, these photos show the site primarily used for industrial rail activity, showing limited vegetation on the site with a narrow strip of trees at the west end of the site. This photo also shows a historical road connection through the site to Buckley Avenue. Another photo from 2005 continues to show the industrial rail use of the site, predominantly now on Lot B and Lot C, and shows how Bailey Street and Old Buckley Avenue Road were aligned before the Eaglewind development was built. Next slide, please. So in 2017, the District of Squamish official community plan was adopted, identifying the east portion of the site as downtown gateway and the west portion of the site as downtown residential. Next slide. This application was first presented at a September 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting and presented again at the May 2023 meeting. The project has hosted 2 public engagement events and 2 community stakeholder meetings specific to the hybrid theater use. It was presented for first and second reading on July 4th, 2023, where council gave the project first reading with a number of conditions to address for second reading. The project was brought back to council for second reading on May 7, 2024, and council gave the project second reading with 7 conditions to be addressed at public hearing and more information requested regarding the hybrid theater, the parking structure, and the no gas covenant. Today's presentation will present how all these conditions and questions have been addressed.
If I can, I'm just going to jump in for just a quick second. I can see we've got more folks arriving than we have chairs for. Following the staff presentation, we'll add a row of seats before we go to the public participation piece. So we'll find you a seat here shortly. I just wanted to communicate that, and I'll back to staff.
So as a quick overview and reminder, the development is broken up into 3 lots, A, B, and C, as outlined in the image on the slide. Lots C and B are primarily residential buildings with a total of 191 market units, with a small portion of ground floor commercial at the east corner of Lot B. Lot A is predominantly commercial employment buildings with roughly a total of almost 9,700 meters squared of commercial use, along with 39 affordable units. In total, all 3 buildings are proposing 230 residential units and securing 9,800 meters squared of commercial space. Please note there was a minor error in the bylaw was noted, which spoke to the commercial area as a whole, and it should read 9,800 meters squared, and instead had 10,000 meters squared. A revised bylaw has been circulated for council this evening. So as a general parking overview of the development, off-street parking refers to parking provided on the site, while on-street parking is parking provided on-street. The project as proposed under the zoning bylaw would require 552 off-street parking stalls. The project is proposing to provide 560 stalls. There are roughly 120 on-street informal parking stalls on the north side of Bailey Street. With the completion of the north side of the road, parking will shift to the south side, where 52 on-street stalls will be provided. A public right-of-way will also be secured in the 218-stall parkade on Lot A, and this is to allow for paid public overnight residential parking options when the parkade is not used for commercial use. So these next slides will provide a general overview of each lot, as well as identify where any zoning changes are proposed on these lots. So Lot A is divided into 4 buildings. Building 1 is a 6-story office and commercial building with roughly 6,500 meters squared of commercial and office space. Building 2 is also a 6-story building, offering roughly 640 meters squared of ground floor commercial space and 39 affordable units. Building 3 is a 5-story building secured to offer both the hybrid theater with a minimum of 300 seats and a childcare space with a minimum of 125 childcare spaces. Building 4 is a 5-story parkade offering 218 parking stalls. The site is also proposing to offer 28 surface parking stalls behind Building 1. Some property line adjustments were made from second reading to public hearing. As a result, bylaw changes to Lot A include changes to the setbacks for these particular areas that you can see circled on the screen. Lot B is identified as Building 5 and is primarily residential with 89 units proposed and 100 meters squared of commercial area secured at the far southeast corner of the site. The site proposes 14 ground floor access townhouse style units fronting Bailey Street. Since second reading, staff have recommended that a road reservation covenant be secured on a portion of Lot B to provide the district with options for a future road connection through the site. As a result, this has impacted the original design of Lot B to achieve its original approved density and allowed units. Staff are recommending 2 changes to Lot B zoning to accommodate the loss of the buildable area. First one is to reduce the required commercial area from 300 meters squared to 100 meters squared, and by allowing a height increase of the building from 5 stories to 6 stories. It's important to note that the overall density of the site has not changed. An additional height is intended to offer some site design flexibility, but would not result in increased units or a 6-story being able to extend the full footprint of the site under the allowed density. So Lot C, is known as Building 6, is a 5-story residential only building with 102 units proposed, including 8 ground floor access townhouse style units fronting Bailey Street. Since second reading, little has changed on this site, with the exception of adding a new setback to the northwest corner of the site to further protect the environmental habitat area. So this table is a full summary of the changes made to CD Zone 107 from second reading that have mostly been explained in the recent slides. A few additional changes were made to the use section to address some errors and to reformat how primary uses were presented in the zone. An additional error was also corrected in one of the Lot A heights. The area in blue just highlights again the change that has come to the bylaw recently. So the phasing for the project is as follows. Phase 1 is the Lot B market residential units. Phase 2 is the Lot A building 2 with the 39 affordable housing units. Phase 3 will include Building 3 and 4 with the theater, childcare, and parkade. Phase 4 is the Lot C market residential units. And Phase 5 is the final building 1 with the commercial office building. The phasing plan allows for Phase 1 to help offset initial site and infrastructure upgrade costs while delivering on key district amenities in Phase 2 and 3. So at second reading, Council approved the following motions, which included 7 conditions and 3 issues to resolve prior to moving forward with public hearing. The next few slides will outline how these conditions and issues were addressed. Condition 1 was for more design information for the 3rd Avenue road connection, so we could secure the appropriate associated land for future connections as part of this rezoning. Staff and the applicant's consultant team have continued to advance designs to support a future 3rd Avenue extension to Buckley Avenue. Uncertainty still exists regarding the future road connection through the CN rail crossing site, which is the area on the slide in teal. To enable the development to proceed in light of this uncertainty, the applicant has agreed to register a road reservation covenant on Lot B, which is outlined in the area in purple. This is in addition to the already agreed upon land transfer on Lot A, which is the area in yellow. The new multi-use pathway through Lot A will be constructed using the area in yellow, and the covenant will provide authority to the district to use the land in purple if needed for a future road crossing. Second condition was for a draft design of the Bailey and Cleveland intersection so we can secure any improvements in the land development agreement. Draft designs for improvements at the Bailey Street and Cleveland Avenue intersection have determined a need to fully signalize the intersection prior to build out of Phase 2 of the development. This means all road improvements west of that pink line on the screen will be built out by Phase 1, while the remaining roadworks, including the Cleveland Avenue multi-use pathway and the intersection improvements, will be built out by Phase 2. This intersection is part of a larger downtown entrance project, and the final design details will be confirmed through that project. Condition 3 and 4 require complete and staff-approved traffic and flood modeling reports to ensure no changes to the zone or LDA conditions following public hearing. So the traffic impact assessment report was completed and reviewed 8 intersections close to the site. The report concluded 2 key recommendations secured in the land development agreement to address the increased traffic this site will generate. First, it is to extend the northbound left turn bay on Cleveland Avenue at the Buckley Street intersection. And this traffic movement is represented by that red arrow on the screen, and to signalize the Cleveland Avenue and Bailey Street intersection, as was previously highlighted and circled here in red. The flood modeling was required as portions of the site are situated within a secondary floodway. And these are the striped line areas on the image on the right. And it's also within a conditional densification area as defined in our OCP. So the flood modeling was completed and confirmed that the proposed development does not increase any flood risk to adjacent sites. Condition 6 was compliance to the CN development guidelines, which is in reference to guidelines established as part of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and the Railway Association of Canada. These guidelines outline a number of building design guidelines, including safety barriers, building standards to address noise and vibration, and design mitigation to adjacent lands. The development is proposing safety barriers consistent with the guidelines, and reports have been conducted by acoustical engineers to determine noise and vibration building requirements. These will be secured in the land development agreement. The district also has a policy to register a noise and vibration covenant for buildings so that owners are aware of the rail proximity when purchasing, and will be registered again at the development permit stage. So specifically for this development, safety barriers proposed include a crash wall for lot B and C, and the parkade on lot A, and these are identified by the arrows in red, and are proposing a compliant ditch design along the remaining open parking lot area for lot A as shown in the yellow line. So the final conditions, 5 and 7, were related to completing environmental reports and securing a no-gas covenant for the entire site. A no-gas covenant for the entire site is now a condition in the land development agreement and will be registered on title at development permit. Both an inventory and assessment of on-street trees was conducted by an arborist, and a site bioinventory was conducted by a qualified environmental professional. The reports noted the historical industrial use of the site and the mature vegetation at the west of the site. As a result, 28 trees, riparian vegetation, and ditch 1 will be protected and enhanced along the western side of Lot C. Ecological compensation for the loss of on-site trees and ditches on Lot A and B will be provided through required on-site replacement trees and the creation of bioswales along the new north side of Bailey Street, which will include street trees. The report also includes restoration, invasive species removal, and native vegetation replanting and enhancement of both the south area of the parklands adjacent to the Park House development and the forested area to the west of Lot C. All right, so moving on to the other motion at second reading. At second reading, a revised theater design was presented to council, and the theater included between 300 and 325 seats and roughly 2,600 meters squared of floor area with information on use and design features put forward in combination with Squamish stakeholders and a theater consultant. It also included commitments for dedicated community use for 10 weekends from Friday to Sunday at operational cost. In early 2024, Squamish Arts also released a Squamish Arts Future Needs Study, which included guidance on various arts and culture needs in Squamish, and it included a large performing arts hub with a long-term timeline and an objective of 400 to 500 seats, including artist residence, for a total of 2,452 meters squared. So at second reading, there was some concern raised with the hybrid theater not meeting this new future needs study. And council requested that staff bring the project back to the arts community to confirm that the proposed hybrid theater was supportable. So the applicant did host a second theater-specific public engagement meeting in May 2025. The meeting was well attended and provided an opportunity to discuss discrepancies between the proposed hybrid theater and the objectives outlined in the future needs study. Despite not meeting the desired seating requirements of 400 to 500 seats and artist residence, the project was found to meet and exceed the areas provided for many of the deliverables you see on the slide, such as storage areas, green rooms, rehearsal space, meeting rooms, dressing rooms. The consensus among the arts community was that although the 500 seats may be needed for select community groups and select performances, it is not a requirement for most, and that this proposed hybrid theater space would be a valuable asset to the Squamish arts community. At second reading, there was also a number of comments regarding the parkade design. The revised zoning package confirms that a 5-story parkade can be accommodated within the zoned height maximum of 13.5 meters, utilizing an open parkade design on the top floor. The open top floor parkade allows for unobstructed views from the proposed childcare space, while still screening vehicles from view from the ground floor. The package also proposes a 7.5 meter distance between the affordable housing residential building and the parkade. Since second reading, our OCP guidelines have also been amended to include design conditions and form and character for parkades. With the addition of the 5th floor parking, the total parking spaces provided on Lot A has increased from 198 stalls to 246 spaces. So this application is subject to the 2023 Voluntary Community Amenity Contribution Policy, and no changes are proposed to that policy from second reading. A brief overview of the CAC commitments are provided in the report and on the slide, and include details such as those affordable housing, childcare, hybrid theater commitments we've previously discussed. CAC amenities also include a direct cash contribution to critical amenities for $1,221,000, and the policy's cash contribution to active transportation to be used to construct the multi-use pathway on the entire north side of Bailey Street, and a part contribution to go towards design and installation of additional play equipment at the existing Eaglewind Park. As part of this rezoning, the applicants are also securing a number of additional commitments in the land development agreement. They include a new multi-use pathway through the 3rd Avenue and Bailey Street connection. This is required by Phase 1 and also includes securities to ensure a pathway remains open to the public at all times during construction. In addition to the Bailey Street multi-use pathway, a multi-use pathway is also secured for Cleveland Avenue. The parkade is secured as an enclosed structure and paid public use of the structure, and relocation of utilities are required by Phase 1, with green roofs secured for Building 1. Conditions of adoption include registration of a public right-of-way on BCR land known as the Town Dyke Trail, as you can see from this image on the left, and execution of a land exchange agreement between the district and BCR Properties, which will allow the district to acquire the area in green for the 3rd Avenue road connection and for the new multi-use pathway and utility corridor, and will secure the area in blue as a utility right-of-way. BCR Properties will acquire the area in red, which is the solid outline, which will require the adoption of a road closure bylaw by the district prior to adoption. So to inform the community per policy, the application was posted to the district's development showcase, and development sign was posted on the site. A developer-led public information meeting was held in May 2022 and in May 2023. Both PIMs were well attended by the public, with a total of 28 comment sheets submitted. The applicants engaged with the art and theater community groups by hosting 2 different events, and both were well attended and expressed support for the theater amenity. Attachment 5 includes all public comments received at the time of report publication, with 6 new comments received since publication. Notification through 2 ads in the newspaper, mailouts to properties within 100 meters was completed in compliance with legislation. We are nearing the end. Following the public hearing, Council may consider the following resolution. And that is that District of Squamish zoning bylaw, amendment bylaw CD zone 107, the village on Bailey Street, which is number 2671, 2023, be given 3rd reading. And that prior to adoption of that bylaw, the following items be completed. They include the execution of the land development agreement, the execution of a land exchange agreement, bylaw approval from the Ministry of Transportation and Transit, registration by the applicant of a Section 219 covenant for flood hazard, and that registration for the public right-of-way for the Town Dyke Trail. Alternatively, council could refer the application back to staff, or they can defeat the application. If referred back to staff, then a new public hearing is required. If defeated, the proponent would need to submit a new application or wait 6 months before a similar application. That concludes the presentation for this evening.
Thank you so much. So what I think I'd like to do now is just to get everyone comfortable, we'll take a quick recess, 5 minutes. We'll get some more chairs in. We've got lots of folks standing and perhaps others arriving. And then what we'll do is we'll go to council questions, and then we'll open up the floor to the public. So let's take a quick 5-minute recess to get some more seating in here, and we'll get underway again. Thank you. Oh, and for those that would like to, we have a speakers list, and you'd register on the side here with Riley. And if you'd like to be on the speakers list, once we're through the speakers list, we will go to hands in the room and so on. But if you'd like to be on the list, you do it over with Riley. So thank you. We're in recess. We'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Thank you. made it 3.5 years without using this gavel. I'd like to make it through tonight too. So if we can, thank you. So we'll call the meeting back to order. What we're going to do now is council, we've had the presentation from staff. Council's going to pose some, has opportunity to pose some questions based on what we've heard. Following that, we'll go to public comments, where we do have a speakers list that has 9 people on it at this point in time, but you can sign up on the side. After we go through the speakers list, we'll go to hands in the room. Everyone that wants to address council will have opportunity to do so. So, council, who would like to start us with questions? Councillor French, then Pettingill.
Thank you, Mayor. Earlier I submitted a drawing, an image, and I understand staff has that. And my question would be a lot easier if that image is available for everybody. So I think we're in the process of getting that onto the screen. The proposed changes to the intersection of Bailey and Cleveland will be critical for traffic management if this project goes ahead. And the drawings in attachment 4 of our package are excellent. There's a lot of information there. The intersection drawing shows 2 eastbound lanes at the eastern end of Bailey, as 1 lane turning right and 1 lane turning left. And you can see that in the image there. The lane turning right, I've got it circled in red to show what would be coming off of Bailey and continuing south on Cleveland Avenue. So now I suspect that 90% of the vehicles at the eastern end of Bailey here are going to be turning left. I mean, that's the reality right now. So to me, it makes sense to spread that left turn volume over 2 lanes instead of just 1 to prevent stacking back onto Bailey. And I see that stacking now most weekdays between 4 and 6. And when special events like the downtown parades are finished and people are trying to get out of the downtown. So I'm wondering from staff, was any consideration given to the right lane being available for both right and left turns, as if got demonstrated in the image?
Thank you for the question, Brian McMurtry, Manager Transportation.
Speak up.
Thank you for the question, Brent McMurtry, Manager Transportation. Through the mayor, this design as prepared shows a right turn, eastbound right, as you identified, and we've confirmed with the consultants who are working with the developer that there's no reason it couldn't be a left and right to accommodate both movements. As you noted, the vast majority of the traffic is turning northbound, but there are some limitations with the storage length. So the number of vehicles that can actually fit within that right turn is pretty limited without more significant impacts. So there's no reason it can't be an open turn that would accommodate both left and right turns.
Okay, and so Mayor, I'm curious to know, is that something that we could just leave with the transportation folks, or do you need some specific direction from council?
Through the chair, that's a detail that would typically be confirmed through the servicing agreement and something that the engineering department would take on.
Okay,
So
thank
that's
you.
a subsequent step to here. Before I go on to Councillor Pettingill, I just want to, we're going to work with the audio in the room to get it as high as possible so everyone can hear. We are also having, sorry, the words are on the screen behind us. It's not perfect, I recognize that, but we're doing what we can to get everyone's so everyone can hear, but it doesn't. I think it will be a team effort, both with us presenting and maxing out our equipment, as well as quiet in the space. So we're trying. I'll go, Councillor French. You have an additional question? Yeah, go ahead, and then I'll go to Councillor Pettingill.
Great. My second and final question at this point, by my reading of the entire package, and my question was addressed in one of the slides. I want to make sure I understand exactly correctly. The amount of parking overall for the entire project, minus 218 stalls in the parking structure that's proposed. Am I correct in saying that that actually over delivers on the number of parking spots that's required of the overall project?
Through the mayor, that is correct.
Thank you. Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, just first a bigger picture contextual question. With the new housing legislation, we're often not allowed to have public hearings. In this case, we are having one. I'm just wondering if we can have a brief overview of why there is a public hearing in this case.
Through the mayor, this application received first reading prior to those changes being changed in the legislation. And as the legislation states, any project that had received first reading would adhere to the old legislation, which is that we would host a public hearing.
Okay, thank you. I'll try two other questions for now, I think. We talked about, for now, a multi-use pathway with a dedication for a future road crossing. Is there enough space there that if or when a road crossing does go through, we still have enough space to maintain bike lanes, sidewalk, and all of that sort of infrastructure?
Through the mayor, that's correct. That will all be secured with the future road design.
Okay, and then just a question about phasing and the interrelationship. Are these completely separate phases where there's no interdependency, or is there something like some degree of progress on phase 2 is required maybe for phase 1 occupancy? So there's some ability to move, but there is still some ability to secure delivery of amenities, or are these just completely separate phases?
Through the mayor, how phasing is secured is through occupancy permits. The applicant could decide to move on all projects if they want to, on all phases. But the district would not be issuing occupancy of those specific buildings until only in order of those phases.
So just to clarify though, phase 1 could be built and occupancy granted, and that's as far as we got for whatever reason. Like there's nothing sort of saying there needs to be some degree of progress on phase 2 to achieve phase 1 occupancy.
Through the mayor, no, there's nothing like that.
Okay, I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. Firstly, some of our public input has addressed the issue of, or issues with the rail side crash wall. One issue raised is that it may work as an acoustic mirror or have that effect. But a couple of people have pointed out that it could be a venue for graffiti. And so I'm wondering how consideration may have been given to access or design or materials in that wall to avoid both of these issues. It would be a shame if it did become a venue for graffiti. Thank you.
So through the mayor, I don't have a perfect visual to show you here, but the crash wall is actually broken up in size and is planning to propose vegetation. That vegetation would get reviewed at development permit. So those design considerations, such as maybe anti-graffiti, textures on the surface and things like that, can be reviewed at development permit.
Thank you. Other folks have raised issues regarding construction management and, for example, how safe routes to school for pedestrians will be accommodated during the various construction phases, parking for the construction workforce, and also avoiding some of the issues that came up with the Jumar project construction, including the use of the old railway station space in the easement off of Buckley. How will staff address construction management planning during the respective phases of the project? Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jay Sternino, project engineer with the District of Squamish. Through the Mayor, the district has the ability to require what we call a construction impact mitigation strategy. This is typically required where a construction project is expected to have an impact on typical functioning of neighborhood and/or local traffic. In this case, the requirements of the construction impact mitigation strategy would be confirmed prior to the issuance of building permit and or servicing agreement, and construction cannot start until the said strategy is in place. These construction impact mitigation strategies typically take into account traffic volumes, peak hours, and major routes, like you suggested concern around, and can specify locations for things like employee or trades parking, material delivery and storage, and any truck staging or queuing.
Thank you. Mayor Herford, I have one final question for now, and it concerns the provision of a public right-of-way on BC Rail Properties land, a so-called Town Dyke Trail. And my question is are there assumptions made in this provision for what the future uses of lot 1100 Bailey Street might be? Some years ago, not too long ago, there was a housing development proposal which appears to take into account enough space for this trail. But I just wondered if there was any assumptions that this trail may or may not affect. Thank you.
Through the mayor, the desire to have the public statutory right-of-way over this trail is just that it is a known trail that the community uses and that the district currently doesn't have a public right-of-way over it, which means we can't manage it or regulate it, say if we wanted to offer off-leash dog or not, or different considerations or maintain it for the public use. And that was the only intention with trying to get a public right-of-way over that.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
A couple questions of my own, and then we'll go to the public. Just on table 4, which is the community amenity contribution overview, I see that the project it appears meets the sort of target set out in the CAC, but exceeds in others, that like the hybrid theater, for instance. Could you speak to sort of generally how this aligns with that policy? I don't want to add commentary to what I'm just trying to compare it to what we're asking. And there are some things about this that are exceptional. So I'm just trying to understand how it compares to what we would expect to deliver to community through community amenity contributions.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, so there is in our community amenity contribution policy, there are recommended sections that should be applied. They include the affordable housing component. They include the cash in lieu of critical amenities, certain parameters and costs around the active transportation and park section. And there's also in the policy an opportunity that states that applicants can offer additional amenities dependent on the scale of the development. And in this case, this applicant has offered the hybrid theater as that amenity, but it is not something we typically have listed in our policy requirements.
Right. And in the absence of that amenity, this project would meet the policy. And this is really above, or are we shifting some of those other amenities we would have delivered through that policy to the theater?
Nope, they are meeting all the CAC policies, and the hybrid theater is a complete additional add-on.
Okay. And can we just, that term hybrid theater, could you just clarify what we mean with that for folks in the room, such as myself, that haven't spent a lot of time in hybrid theaters?
Certainly. So the hybrid theater model, I think when we typically just say theater, we think of a stage and we think of performances or an ability for cinema. The hybrid theater model also offers opportunities for the space to be transformed for events and venues and conferences. The chairs are proposed as movable, and so the space can actually change and evolve to offer different needs for the community. And that's why it's called hybrid theater.
Thank you very much for that. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I think just one question at this time, and it's clarification around the improvements that are required at Bailey and Cleveland in advance of phase 2. Can staff just clarify how much this proposed development would be like the total cost expected under that design, how much this development would be contributing, and what the delta would be that the district may have to cover before phase 2 happens.
Through the mayor, we don't have that information currently. So construction drawings that would be advanced for a servicing agreement typically happen later in the stage. The Cleveland Bailey intersection improvements are identified in the development cost charge bylaw. And so there is a contribution based off the units being constructed towards that the applicant, if they were required to build the intersection improvements, would receive a credit for those cost charge contributions, but they would be responsible for paying for the extra above that. So yeah, we don't have those numbers though tonight.
Thank you for that. I am curious why we then wouldn't require it as part of the land development agreement that those improvements be done by the developer in advance of phase 2, given that's what's required in the traffic impact study.
Yeah, thank you for the question through the mayor. So currently the district's also working on a downtown entrance project, and we are looking to most efficiently deliver the infrastructure that we need. And so the traffic impact assessment has identified that these intersection improvements aren't needed until the development in phase 2 of the project comes on board. And so because of that, the existing configuration can support the development delivered through phase 1. And by waiting to have it delivered at phase 2, it increases the probability that we're going to get the improvements that we need and that we want that align with the overall vision for the downtown entrance, instead of what has been secured at this or through this would be secured through this rezoning.
Okay, we'll move on now to members of the public. So first, we always save space at these events for any officials from the Squamish Nation to comment on the proposed zoning. I don't believe we have anyone with us this evening. So now we'll move to, I'll ask now if the proponent or the representative would like to make a submission, after which everyone else will be given an opportunity to speak. Is there anyone from the proponents team that wishes to speak at this time? Come on up. So we're going to get you at the podium here. And yeah, and we'll make sure you get to go to speak first, but you also get to be oh, look, the camera's working. So you have up to 3 minutes to address council. If you could introduce yourself to start and then take it away.
Okay, so my name is Dan Chesson, and I'm one of the proponents in this project. My partner, Jerry Olma, is here as well. And we've actually been working with staff on this for 11 years. And honestly, if I'd known how much work it was, it's incredible. So I just want to say thank you to the staff, because I know it's been an up and down battle with us to get to where we are, but we're pretty excited about the whole package. This is a community amenity package to me. I look at the housing and the homes that we're going to provide for families. And I am a realtor, just so you know, so I have a bit of a sidebar there. But we've kind of included the theater because it's a bit of a legacy project for us. It's a family legacy project we want to leave somewhere. And you can't find a community that we can do that in easily. So anyway, it's just been a very important part of this for us. And I think if anyone has any questions, we're here. We're happy to answer them. You can call us, just phone Remax and ask for Anne, and happy to chat. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your submission. So next, I'm going to call on members of the public, and each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to address council. I'm going to start with the folks that are on the speakers list. And if you'd like to be on the speakers list, we can keep adding to it. Once we go through that, we'll just go to hands in the room. So everyone will have opportunity to address council. After a few submissions, we'll stop, and council can pick up any questions you may have and pose them to staff. It's a way to sort of filter it out. So you can pose the questions, but it'll be up to council to pick up those questions and get them addressed. So with that in mind, and just a reminder, early on, I in my remarks was talking about remaining quiet in the room and when folks are expressing for or against. I think that's just a gentle reminder for that. So let's jump into it. Our speakers list to get us going would be Mark Silverwood, please. Mark Silverwood. You're up if you wish. Okay, that's all right. Well, then we'll go down the list until someone accepts my invitation to make a submission. So I think Jerry might have been in the same case. Janice maybe as well. So Monica, there we go. Thank you. There you go. So you have 3 minutes. If you start with introducing yourself, please, and then you have 3 minutes to address council. Thank you.
Sure. Hello, my name is Monica Ivanovsky. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just gave up my day job and I'm going into the arts. I am a poor starving artist as of 2 weeks. I am a singer-songwriter and a playwright. So I am extremely excited about the proposal of the theater and the housing project. I'm also going to be needing housing, so thank you. I am just so excited to hear what you're doing, and I am in total support. So thank you for being here, and thank you for considering their proposal and making it final. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll have Sasha Floyd.
My name is Sasha Floyd. I'd like to thank council for being here and staff for representing. My question, I just moved here. My partner and I grew here. She's from here, but coming from Vancouver. Some of the things that I'm concerned about when I look at this project is one, the parking, but also the phasing. Something that has been prevalent in Vancouver, but also here with the Sea to Sky project across the way. That took 6 years for the recreation center to be implemented. How is the phasing from an actual legality bylaw perspective roped in together? And are they related financially? So is it like you get your first string of financing for the residential, they sell, then that implementation funds the others, or is it one lump sum? Because very quickly that development can all of a sudden be like, oh, we ran out of money, our hands are tied, sorry, not sorry kind of thing. There's not really much we can do once something moves in that direction, especially you guys don't have much power like that I'm aware of. So my query is around that. Also, whether that the traffic for allowing that to be now a slip road, how much can that actually funnel or handle? Because there's parkades, yes, and then there's an additional that said was over succeeded, but now you're saying there's a theater and other reasons why people would want to come to the site. Where's those people parking? We've seen the bike lanes be implemented, which means we're reducing parking. So I just want to know where the overflow is happening or how that related. So those are my questions to council.
Thank you very much for your submission. So what we'll do is we'll hear a few submissions like this, and then we'll pick up some questions. So thank you very much. So next, we have David Dorfman.
Hi, thank you so much. First and foremost, I wanted to thank the developer, but also largely Squamish Council and the municipality for putting all this work and all the due diligence into researching all aspects of community impacts. You've done a phenomenal job, and you've already addressed 98% of my concerns just in the work you've done. So you don't get enough appreciation, and thank you. My questions are as follows. The road from 3rd to Buckley is a fantastic point, but it seemed like there wasn't really the commitment, if I understood correctly, from the city to actually build that road right away. And I just wanted to flag that with the 3 towers that Polygon's developing already, we have over 200 units that are about to come online. They're doing an awesome job building, they're moving fast, and that comes with, I think, 300 and change parking stalls that are included in that development. So I just want to be clear that as it is, there's traffic at that intersection, but we need to make sure that we're planning for what that's going to look like in 2 years' time in 4 years' time. So I would strongly encourage council to consider committing to building that road. And then the second point I wanted to make is my wife works at the high school, and I see all the time how many children cross the street, both on Buckley and the next street over, where both the high school and the elementary school are. And the RCMP have been doing an amazing job of enforcing the 30-kilometer-an-hour speed limit, but it's not practical for them to be there every minute of every day. I would strongly recommend considering a pedestrian overpass so that children can get to and from school safely. And we do want to make sure that Squamish remains an accessible town for families, for children, etc. And then this is just a minor side point, but in terms of the parkade that they're building, given that we are pushing for electrification and we see kind of the volatility in gas prices, having rented a condo in Squamish that doesn't have EV charging, that was built right before the requirement was put in place, there are quite a lot of people who live in condos and have that as a barrier where they can't charge their car at home. So given this will be a paid parkade, if we could make sure that there are charging stalls, not just for the 10% of people that have EVs now, but the expectation in the future that that'll probably be 50% of the fleet, it would be a fantastic opportunity for even people that are renting or own condo or traditionally wouldn't have access to level 2 EV charging to pay whatever the overnight parking fee is, plug their cars in, and suddenly we open up the doors for a lot more people to access electric vehicle ownership. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. And just for those in the room, that's what 2 minutes and 45 seconds looks like. So you can get a lot out in that time. So next we'll go to Jessica Kelly, and then we'll go to Tom Beebe, and then we'll do a quick break and we'll do some questions from council for staff. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jessica Kelly, and I'm the owner of Act Alive Academy. I can also think that I can safely speak on behalf of most of the arts community here tonight. I just want to say that we all are very much in favor of this theater. It is very, very much needed by those of us in the arts community. But my question is in regards to what the plan is for management of the theater, who is going to be managing it, and what the ongoing plan is, because that is one of the biggest problems that's facing our current theater right now, is that it exists, but there's nobody actually running it. So I would really encourage you to think about that and plan for that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then Tom Beebe. No, that's all the time in the world for that.
Hi, I'm Tom Beebe, a resident on Buckley Avenue. Just wanted to start by saying that I'm supportive of this development and really see the need for densification in the downtown core to prevent the suburban sprawl that we're seeing with other developments, which I'm generally against. I think, how densifying the downtown core is a sustainable way to live and has less of an impact on the fantastic place we live. So that's a big priority for me. A couple of observations. Eric's already addressed one around the 300-meter long concrete wall that will inevitably become a spot for vandalism if it's not considered properly. So I hope that it's more than just the odd planter and tree, which, if without maintenance, will die, and then it presents a long-term problem for the community there. On a similar discussion point as well, the parkade facing Buckley. Whilst I appreciate it's not the main aspect of the building, Bailey Street is obviously the most visible, but it is going to be very visible from Buckley, and I do believe the architecture at the moment it's for me it seems very urban and something you'd see in downtown Vancouver rather than downtown Squamish. So I'd like to see some consideration to that and to how we can soften the aesthetic of that 5-story parkade, I think it was. And then finally, I'd just like to push council on the decision to look for an extra level to go from 5 to 6 stories. And it would be good to just, again, understand what the rationale was there. I understand there's been some challenges with achieving the density on the site, but can that be achieved through other means? increasing the floor areas on and the setbacks on the lower levels to avoid the need to go to a 6th floor. I know from a building perspective as well, it's pretty inefficient to add a small 6th floor. So yeah, I think the builder would also appreciate not having to achieve the same buildable area, but in 5 levels rather than 6. So that's everything from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll go to council for questions. Council, through this course of the submissions, any questions that we wish to follow up on? Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor Herford. I'd like to pick up the question about theatre management. I'm curious about this too. What can staff tell us at this point about the vision and the planning for how the theatre, the hybrid theatre, would be managed?
So through the mayor, at both of the meetings that were hosted, theater management was a key component in discussion that was raised by our community stakeholders. The proponent is very much aware of that need. We're limited as a municipality to regulate those things. And so what we've done in the land development agreement is to regulate as much as we can regarding the theater space. But we cannot regulate that they have a manager of that theater, and but the applicant has certainly expressed that they have a desire to have a manager and make sure that those problems that we do experience in our community are resolved with this model.
Yep, Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, thanks. Just we haven't dealt with a lot of parkades, and I'm just wondering if we have any policy or what would apply in terms of EV support in a public parkade.
So through the mayor, we do have design guideline or design regulations in our zoning bylaw that would be looked at and applied at development permit. They do include in our parking provisions that 10% of all commercial stalls provide EV charging stalls. So that is the base requirement. The applicants could certainly put more in there if they desire. So 10% of all of those stalls, 242 on Lot A, would have EV charging stalls.
And if I can just follow up on that, is that 10% fully functional, or is that 10% roughen, or 10% fully functional and a certain other amount with the conduit there?
Yeah, through the mayor, that would be providing the actual EV charging units.
Okay, and is there any beyond that in terms of conduit or roughen for remainder?
Through the mayor, no, there is no provision for additional rough-ins for that in our zoning bylaw. That's only for residential.
Okay, and then in terms of our DPA guidelines, not just looking for some sense of, would it be more residential focused DPA parts of the guideline that would apply, or commercial parts, or how would we sort of look to generally interpret our DPA guidelines in the context of a parkade?
Certainly through the mayor. I did mention this in our presentation, but recently we did make an amendment to our development permit guidelines that speak to parkades, just because we do have many of them above ground here in Squamish. And those design guidelines will speak to kind of both lighting, how it looks, design features or design form and character of those buildings. So that certainly will be something we will look to with this application at development permit. It's not details that we would be looking at the zoning bylaw, but we do have guidelines in there that help staff make sure that this is presenting the best parkade project.
And I'm just going to pick up the parkade piece. There was a question around the screening or how it presents on the sort of the backside. I guess that's the Buckley portion. Do those guidelines address that piece, or is it just the sort of the facing the front, what would be considered the front of the property, or the more exposed piece of property, and what should we expect there?
It would address all sides.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the EV charging units in our zoning bylaw. Do you know the type of charger those are? Are they level 1, level 2, level 3?
Through the mayor, level 2.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I'm just going to keep going down the line here. I think we'll get there. Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair. Curious if staff can speak a little bit to the tools that we have that would compel developers to build or not through land development agreements. It's one thing that we have definitely struggled with over the years with legacy zoning rights being provided through rezoning and then seeing it take a long time for development to come to fruition. One item that we've talked about in recent years is around sunset clauses in land development agreements. I'm just wondering if that has been something that has been discussed in this rezoning.
Thank you through the chair. Sunset clauses in this development have not been discussed at this time. Given the length this project has been under discussion, it's never entered into the discussions. We have means that we can ensure development begins and we can secure amenities based on certain stages of development. Once the development begins, any tool that we may have included would no longer exist. So compelling them to build future phases. We are limited in that respect. And certainly with land development agreements or phase development agreements, other tools that we use, there's nothing that would compel them to start work necessarily. But we would, in the cases that we do that, we would be delaying the receipt of amenities and we may not receive them at all at that point.
As proposed, most of the amenities are later in the phase. So we've gone through a period where we actually would secure, especially cash at adoption, and it's presented here to be collected at development permit, which is later than expected, typically. And so I'm just wondering if staff can speak to the rationale as to why the cash CACs are later in the rezoning if there's no sunset clause presented in the land development agreement.
Yeah, so through the mayor, our community amenity contribution policy actually does allow for payment of those CAC amounts at development permit, as long as the CPI with the price index is applied per those years. And so that is how we followed the policy with that condition. When we do apply sunset clauses, what we do is we actually require the CACs at building permit. So we do push it later. Another way in which we can manage phasing is the phasing deliverables and the timing of each phase. So market housing and offering market housing is usually quite a lucrative interest for the applicant. And so by pushing those further into those phases helps us ensure that the community amenities are delivered. And so in this case, just even to get the first phase of development, they will have to rebuild most of Bailey Street, create a multi-use pathway, redo a number of municipal utilities. There's quite a significant amount of work required prior just to that first building, which is why we've offered that first. And then follows both of the two major amenities that is outlined in our CAC policy, which is the hybrid theater and the childcare and affordable housing, and then followed by the phase 4, which is again 102 market residential units. So that's the kind of leverage that is used to try and incentivize those amenities being built.
And then the final phase is the one that I'm actually most concerned about, phase 5, which is majority or entirely commercial. And I'm just curious if there's any leverage point there. From what I understand, typically those are the least viable components of any development, and there's no backstop on residential behind it. And so how do we ensure that that gets built?
Through the mayor, there is no way we can ensure that. At this time, it's a market concern, but it may not be a market concern in 5 years when that phase is ready to be developed. So that's all we can offer.
I'm just going to, while we're talking about the deliverables and how we're securing them, there was a question around basically essentially how are we ensuring that we get those? Can you speak about the mechanisms that as proposed to ensure that the proponent delivers on that, whether that's it's usually tied to, I would assume, occupancy or other permitting requirements before things can advance? Can you just run us through what that looks like broadly on this?
Yeah, there are a number of different amenities, so I'm going to speak very generally to this. But some of the amenities are secured at development permits. So once the application comes forward and is approved by council at development permit, then we would, to issue that development permit, we would have to collect on all of those fees that are part of the development permit phase. Anything that's required when you start seeing phase 1 or phase 2 or phase 3, that's in reference to the occupancy of that building. And once a proponent has invested a significant amount of money to actually build all of that infrastructure, there's quite an incentive to ensure that they can occupy it. So that ensures that we get those amenities at that time.
Thank you. That was the right level. If we get more specific than that going forward, we'll deal with that then. Councillor Anderson, do you, or no, yeah, go ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks very much. I wanted to follow up on the question about the 3rd Avenue to Buckley connection. Short connection, railway, road immediately on the other side of the railway. There's a lot of sort of engineering and planning constraints there. Can staff speak to some of those constraints and maybe pull up if the slide of the red road that kind of curves around in a, when you first look at it, kind of funny way? What are the constraints that we're dealing with there, and why can't we just say, yes, we'll build it?
Through the mayor, yeah, I can start answering that as Carrie pulls up the slide that you're looking for. So because the proposed road connection is crossing the CN rail right-of-way, there's additional standards and regulations from Transport Canada that that road connection would need to comply with. And so those are, yeah, also the additional complexity of negotiating an agreement with the rail authority who is operating that rail line. So Transport Canada aren't the authority that directly delivers or approves an improvement or a change. And so it's really to do with the proximity of the railroad to the connection to Buckley Avenue that is creating some uncertainty of what what the road will look like. And as staff and the support from the proponent to work towards this have kept all of our options open to ensure, if possible, we are able to have a two-way road connection that would extend 3rd Avenue from Bailey to Buckley. And if that road reservation covenant area is needed to complete that based off the requirements from Transport Canada and the Rail Authority, that would enable us to do that with the agreement as proposed.
And just on this point, thank you for taking us through that. That work makes the most sense to occur following this, should it be successful, given the complexity of the design and so on, and with this regulatory step in the way of that. That's kind of where we are. We need to wait for this to advance before that the crossing can be formalized and like that sort of investment can be made to bring that to reality. Is that sort of what I'm hearing?
Through the mayor, so this improvement isn't something that's being secured through this rezoning. So the work is a district-led project that has been identified as not immediate term priority from the transportation master plan and the work that is going on downtown to understand where our needs lie. So CN Rail won't sign an agreement if we are many years away from actually constructing an improvement. And so the direction that we hear from the Rail Authority is the regulations and policies of that time are what will apply to that rail agreement. So we've been continuing to work with CN staff and the consultants from the proponent, but there's no certainty that it will happen in short notice.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from down? I have two. One is we have a program, Safe Routes to School. How how was that sort of those standards applied to the review of this project? We heard a request for an overpass, which is a big piece of infrastructure, but how was that sort of access to the schools contemplated in this proposal at this point?
Through the mayor. So yeah, we know the current connection across the railroad is really a key connection for Squamish Elementary, Howe Sound, and the French school as well. And so what has been secured or will be secured through this rezoning is an improved multi-use path connection that would provide a connection from Bailey Street to the existing crosswalk that crosses Buckley, and to facilitate and improve that connection that is there today.
Okay. Thank you. I'll hold my questions there. We'll go back to our list. We have Megan Kimball is next on the list. Oh.
Hi, I'm Megan Kimball. I live on Eaglewood, so really close. I actually had a chance to review the latest document, so I have a list of questions, but I know I only have 3 minutes, so I'll try and be brief. Bear with me.
What we'll do is go, and then I will need to cut you off, but we'll come back around if we haven't had them all answered. Okay.
Addressed, so
go ahead, see what you can do, and this time is not counting on your time, but we are starting now.
sounds good. Yeah, within the Eaglewood strata, residents privately fund road maintenance on internal roads. So referring to the last report, page 12 confirms that the traffic impact assessment covers 10 intersections, but I didn't actually see the report that Eaglewood was included in that. With the 230 unit development with a large parking structure, obviously a ton of commercial space, a hybrid theater, which I am excited about. The flow along Eaglewood will greatly increase, and the cost falls on strata residents and not the district. The Eaglewood is a residential community where there's tons of kids as well. I think I'm one of the only people on the street, honestly, that doesn't have kids in the house, and they're outside playing in the street all the time. There's also a ton of speed bumps, so if you drive through there, you have to drive through slowly, but there's not that many cars at this present moment. So I'm curious, has the traffic impact assessment specifically modeled the effect on roads within the adjacent Eaglewood development? And has there been any child safety assessments conducted for that road network and not just the public intersections? Will there be traffic calming or turning restrictions to prevent cut-through traffic into our strata? And will the district or developer consider a development cost contribution to offset the maintenance and safety burden being placed on existing neighborhood residents where the roads are likely to increase in traffic? No. Another piece as well, just in terms of the flood management, on page 13 of the council report, condition 5, I believe, states flood modeling was completed on April 2nd, which was only 26 days ago. And I'm curious, since it's sitting in a secondary floodway, was that report peer reviewed in that time within those 26 days? And if so, by whom? And also, is it publicly available for the community to review? And what will be the effect of the stormwater drainage for adjacent properties, including Eaglewood? Has that been assessed and made public? How am I doing for time?
Yeah, the 2-minute mark, you're making good progress.
I also wanted to acknowledge that in previous meetings, there has been acknowledgement of the lack of parking that will be occurring obviously during the construction, but also once the construction is done. This was raised in the meetings in 2022 and 2023. I was not physically there, but I did read that. And I just wanted to flag that looking at the council report, staff acknowledged that, but there hasn't really been, other than some additional parking on the street. I just don't think it's been addressed super clearly. So I'm curious, what is the interim parking solution for Eaglewood residents between phase 1 occupancy and phase 3, since that parking infrastructure won't be available right away? And has the traffic impact assessment modeled the displacement of existing parking, not just the new parking that will be needed, that's going to be generated with the construction? And then also the spacing in the actual parking structure. I just want clarity if it's going to be accessible to neighboring residents at a reasonable rate. I know there's been a lot of talk about parking, so I just want some clarity on that as well.
You've just gone over your 3 minutes, so we'll come back around if you have additional pieces. So thank you very much. Next, we have Patrick Henry.
Hi, everyone. My name is Patrick Henry. I'm Eagle Wind resident and Stream Strata president, which runs along Bailey and all the way along Eagle Wind Boulevard. Thankfully, Megan just mentioned a few of my questions, but I think they're pretty important issues that I'd like to bring up. I personally don't have any real comments directly on this development itself. I think it's more about the impacts to the neighborhood. Again, it's parking. We could go on for days about parking, but every single day there's 130 plus cars along Bailey. Maybe not all of them need to be there, and maybe some of them don't live or visit in Eagle Wind. But I think it's something to consider when you add in another 230 units. I appreciate that we're exceeding the expectation for parking, but also with Polygon happening, and if there's more changes to Third Ave with other mixed use bike lanes and whatnot, as we add in more volume, where are these cars going to go? I know that that will be up to a lot of the owners and people that live here, but I think it's something that we need to consider. And I know that it doesn't necessarily align with downtown densification direction, but there's many people in my neighborhood that, like Megan specifically, she has 2 roommates. They're young professionals trying to get a start in Squamish. People are renting rooms because they're $4,500 to $5,000 a month. They all need cars because people work in Whistler, people work in Vancouver, people work in Squamish. You shouldn't have to justify why you have a car. So I think it's just something that we need to consider. And I appreciate that that is being discussed. Second, again, just to echo our concerns with Eagle Wind is that we are an HOA. There's 7 stratas that pay for maintaining the roads. We clear the snow. We fix the roads when there's issues. We pay for the speed bumps that we need. We pay for the line painting. All these things need to be considered. As I've lived here for 5 years and in Park House before that for 4, every single year we're seeing much more flow through traffic through Eagle Wind and Summits View. And as Megan said, there's a ton of young families. It's an amazing community. I would not want to leave it. Be honest, as all these things happen, it will be less enticing for families to live here. And we're just going to see more and more flow through traffic. And at the end of the day, the strata residents are footing the bill for this. So, starting or stopping this project isn't really, anything we can do about it, but it's just something that needs to be considered. And I appreciate the consideration for Bailey and Cleveland, and hopefully we get this flow through to Buckley. But yeah, I think there needs to be more consideration for Eagle Wind specifically, Summits View and Eagle Wind Boulevard, and obviously what we're seeing here coming off of Eagle Wind with Summits View. So that would be my comments, and I appreciate everyone facilitating this and allowing us to attend it. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your submission. I've got 2 folks left on the speakers list, and we'll go to another round of council questions. Then I'll go hands in the room if we have any additional comments. So Ali Cloth. Hello.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I too am an Eagle Wind resident, and I in no way mean disrespect, but I wonder if you know about the scuttlebutt at the dog park, that it's really a lack of planfulness in this community. And I have lived in Rockcliffe and recently moved over to the townhomes in Streams. Patrick is my strata president. And I was struck by a car in Vancouver, British Columbia, and went part-time as a UBC professor due to a traumatic brain injury. That's why I live in Squamish. And I feel like Squamish is losing its Squamishness kind of all the time, especially right here. We have a tight, small, good community, and it is being challenged by parking, but it feels like we're not waiting for 3 summits to be analyzed. Like, what's that impact on our community, on our parking, on our emergency routes out, things like that. And I feel like that is something, again, to be considered here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your submission. So we're going to go next to Cameron Wilson, and then we'll go to council.
Hey there, I'm Cameron. I just have a couple of questions here, and one of them is, what about, will there be any replanting of any screen of trees along Bailey, while the construction is going on? For Lot B, I know it's hard to say, but in an ideal world, what is the approximate construction start date and approximate construction duration? And also last one is just how many stories will building 1 be? And that's it.
Thank you very much. So, council, any questions from what we've that we want to put to staff? I started this way down last time. I'm going to go start Councillor Hamilton and work our way down this time, and then we'll go back to the room.
We can start with an easy one. Building 1 height. Could you remind us what the Building 1 height is?
Through the mayor, the building 1 height is proposed, it's a 6-story building, but it's a 23-meter tall building.
And my second question is about the flood modeling. And Megan noted that the flood modeling report had been sort of received or approved not too long ago. How long has that flood modeling been going on?
Through the mayor, flood modeling has been identified as needed for this project for a number of years. The flood modeling is a long process. It takes about 6 months for the model to review everything. The proponent had paid for the model about probably 8 or 9 months ago. And that report, there was some details that needed to get resolved in it. And so the modeling did start and was provided within 5 months. We did receive initial memos and initial review of some of those considerations prior to booking this this public hearing, so that we knew we had assurances that there were no impacts to the building that were going to need to be addressed to address flood modeling. But yes, the date specifically of that final report received was quite soon.
Okay, Councillor Anderson, anything? We don't have to. Councillor Stoner?
Yeah, thanks. I'm just wondering if staff can speak to the traffic impact assessment report and whether that considered the Eagle Wind Strata roads or if it was just the district roads.
Through the mayor, yeah, the traffic impact assessment only looked at or considered trips to be handled on the district roads, so not using strata roads. And typically the measures that are in place on strata roads that create an environment that encourages people to drive slow, speed humps, lots of access, is a deterrent to the vast majority of drivers. There's not an ability for the district to enforce all of those drivers who choose to travel through, but the traffic impact assessment didn't look at that either.
And then I am curious if the traffic impact assessment accounts for like all the zone capacity within our downtown core or buildings that are under construction or have been approved.
Through the mayor's, the traffic impact assessment looks at different time horizons and both in-stream development. So the polygon development at Three Summits was considered, and the number of units that are being added through that was included in the traffic impact assessment. And then a more general background growth was used to accommodate future development that isn't known yet. So it's a combination of in-stream development as well as projecting for future changes as they occur.
Thank you for that. And then I am curious, I hear that we don't have ability to enforce on strata roads, for example, but would we ever put up signage that would be like local road only or like simple measures like that that would potentially further reduce cut through traffic?
Through the mayor, so a sign that's on private property that says private access only is something that I don't believe we would have any bylaws that say there's an opposition to that. Typically, we wouldn't be installing signs that we're not able to enforce, so we wouldn't be installing a regulatory sign that isn't our area to enforce.
Okay, I'm going to keep going down the line. Councillor Greenlaw?
Yeah, that was actually what I was going to ask. Is it within the rights of the Eaglewind residents to put up a no through traffic sign in an attempt to reduce the amount of traffic that goes through?
Through the mayor, yes, as far as I'm aware.
Just to jump in on this, are there limits to that? Like they access the strata roads that are part of the existing development. We covered signage, but could it go so far as to limiting access to like whose decision is it as to whether how the connectivity works in the strata roads? Is that ours through some covenant when the development occurred, or is it really at the will of the stratas?
through the mayor, yeah, good question. We don't think, and I don't know if there's a covenant. We would expect that it would be through a strata bylaw. So the strata corporation would be able to pass a bylaw that would regulate what that access to private property looks like.
Right, but like with this building being accessed by strata road, I'm assuming there'd be some sort of right of way to secure that. So there's got to be limits to this, but within whatever those are, it's really to the strata to manage the strata roads.
That's my understanding. Yes.
Okay. Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, I was going to ask sort of, are these roads that we have established a public right of way? Is it just we've required emergency access beyond that? And maybe that's something that we don't have an answer to, but just trying to understand, yeah, where that line is and what we require versus what we permit.
Through the mayor, I don't have that answer in front of me today, but emergency access, delivery access, there's lots of reasons why you would want to encourage, or not encourage, but support some access to private property. But I think that there could be other measures that would be taken that would prevent people from using those roads as a pass through.
Okay. To go back to an earlier question about, I guess, wanting to understand the phasing, and I gather that the phases are independent, except for, it sounds like, which seems a bit unusual, where some work we have to do could be an obstacle to phase 2. I understand we don't have specific DCC numbers right now, but do we have a sense of, or confidence that when the development is ready for phase 2 and beyond, we're ready or done? I'm just thinking about our 10-year financial plan, and there's a lot in that. So what's our confidence that we wouldn't be an obstacle to phase 2?
Through the mayor, the expectation would be if phase 2 is advancing, they would have the ability to construct the signal upgrades as needed to support their development. And so we wouldn't be an obstacle at that time. The requirement for them to construct that intersection improvement exists if that precedes the work that we are going to complete as the district.
Okay, and so then there'd be front end agreement or that type of thing or DCC. So they would be expected to build it if they were ready, and that's why we wouldn't be an obstacle.
That's correct. If they were ready in advance of the district's capital project proceeding, they would be responsible for constructing it as the LTA is proposed.
Councillor French, questions?
Thanks, Mayor Herford. The question about replanting along Bailey got me thinking a little bit about landscaping. Just did a double check, and the report to council for tonight's meeting, as massive as it is, I don't see a landscape plan. My memory says to me that maybe at second reading, there might have been a landscape plan included in the report to council. So I wonder if staff could just give us a high level on the landscaping that's proposed for the project, and either confirm for me that my recollection is correct, I did see a landscape plan somewhere along the line, or that I'm off my rocker on that.
Yeah, through the mayor, rezoning packages over the years have varied in terms of the detail provided. Typically at rezoning, we just want to look at massing, but I believe you are correct, Councillor French, that in previous applications, there was a bit more detail shown on the plans to show on-site landscaping. Rezoning is not the time to review that or to approve that. So this is probably why this particular application doesn't go into that detail. I can speak to in phase 1 with those road upgrades, there is a proposal to have a bioswale put in there with a multi-use pathway along the north side, and that bioswale will include street trees. And so that will be a requirement by phase 1, which will beautify the street.
Okay, great. And Mayor Herford, just because I took us on this road, if there is anybody out there who wants to find that second reading landscape detail and can't find it, reach out to me. I'll help you get through it.
And we'll see it again at development permit if that's where we end up. I had a couple of questions. One, I think we touched on the floods report and modeling. There was a question that I took to be about sort of impact of construction on these properties and what the impact would be to adjoining properties from stormwater perspective. But could you speak to our stormwater requirements of a project of this project or a project like this?
Good evening, through the mayor. This project was required through the rezoning process to go through a stormwater modeling exercise and has done capacity assessments on all of the adjacent stormwater infrastructure. I think it's worth noting that through our subdivision and development control bylaw, there's a standard requirement that all development is held to, that post-development runoff is not to exceed pre-development runoff. And so all drainage is held to the same standard. And in the case of this project, through the servicing agreement and building permit exercises, we would look at securing whatever is required to minimize drainage concerns. In most cases, for projects of this size, that requires some form of on-site detention and flow control.
Thank you for that. The matter of the 6th story on the one, sorry, I'm forgetting the number of the building now, but on the property where we need a little more room for the potential road crossing, what options were considered there and that sort of led to this being the proposed remedy for the situation of sort of the loss of developable space?
So yeah, through the mayor, this site is constrained but through many means, both the CN rail proximity in terms of how close residential buildings can actually come to the rail line, which means that the density can't always go wide and has to go up. And because that additional road reservation covenant area basically took away a portion of that proposed residential area. And it happened it happened it happened right in advance of coming forward with this. Once we had done all of this modeling work, we wanted to ensure that we gave the applicant some flexibility, but that we weren't increasing density for the site. So the applicant will have a choice at development permit to come forward with maybe something that's a bit more efficient that stays within the 5 stories and see if they can max out their massing within that 5 stories. But it also gives them the opportunity to increase that height to that 6-story amount to achieve that density.
Right. And ultimately, if they aren't able to do that, they could build to 5 stories and just not max the density of the zone. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the public. We are through our speakers list. So if there's anyone that hasn't spoken, we'll start with folks that haven't spoken yet, and then we'll go back around for those that have, and then may have additional questions or follow-ups to what we've heard so far. Is there anyone in the room that wishes to speak? I'll start here, and then we'll go there. We'll just IT is just going to get a fresh, make sure the setup is working. But if you want to come on up, and we'll just make sure it's working before your time starts. There you go. So please introduce yourself, and you have 3 minutes to address council.
Sure. Hello, council and district. My name is Jill Kaler, and I live in the Rockcliffe building. I guess my question, it's not even really a question, it's more just about very understandable, the densification of downtown. There's going to be building, it's loud. However, for that, for the Eagle Wind area, we have the 3 summits happening right now, which is going to be ongoing. And so I think to the point of when the start dates might be, just that consideration of the amount of noise and construction is a stressor for people, and people working shift work or with small kids or elderly folks who have sleeping issues. I'm just hoping that also is a consideration in all of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I had here, you're next.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Charlotte Silverman, and I live right behind here, actually, in Eaglewind. I'm fairly new to Squamish. So I've heard a lot of talk about parking and schools and so on and so forth. I'm wondering, has there been any consideration to open up Bailey in the other direction? There is currently a dirt road that funnels into a like a paved road and then up to government road. That would provide a different direction of flow of traffic. And in addition to that, it would also help with any evacuation routes that would be necessary. Because right now we're funneling everything into Cleveland Avenue. And if there's ever an evacuation need, that's going to be a big bottleneck. Anyway, that's thank you.
Thank you very much. That was it for how I'll go out for hands in the room that haven't spoken yet, and then I'll go around for those that would like another opportunity. Is there anyone else that would like to provide a submission at this point in time that hasn't spoken yet? Seeing none, I'm going to go back. I'll just check with those that have spoken if you'd like to speak again. And would you like to take advantage of that? Would you like to speak again? Yeah. Yeah, of course. Come on up, and we'll start the same process, and then yeah, go ahead.
My brain's just calculating what's going on here, and I'm just picturing way too much with one way in and one way out. And I'm sort of blown away by it. That's all.
Thank you. I'm going to I'll go to this gentleman in the front, and then yeah.
Hello, my name is Dave Eaton. I just wanted to say that I'm for this project. It'll nice to finally see an end to the encampments that usually occupy that space. My question is there any plans for staging of trucks, dump trucks, concrete trucks, worker vehicles? Where will they go? Where will they park? If there's a plan for that at all? Thank you.
Thank you. I see some hands in the back. I'm going to go over here. I can't. Yes, come on up, and then I'll go over there.
Hi, my name is Crystal, and I just have a question about the construction monitoring of this project. I understand that the EA and all those impacts assessment were probably done like years ago, and I'm wondering sort of with this development area being in a newly recognized key biodiversity area, if that's going to play into updating construction monitoring plan with regards to like wildlife corridors that this project sits in. So I'd just like some clarification on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I saw two hands here. I'll go to the young lady in the front here, and then I'll go to the gentleman behind.
Hello, I'm Kirsten. Thank you, council. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Mayor, for having us. With the clearing out of the corridor, we noticed all of the encampments have been, cleared out, but they just get pushed further back into the bush, and it's a consistent problem. I'm just, with the proposal to add community services for us, I'm curious about the community services being offered to the folks who are living in our forests. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Duncan Pawson. I'm on Stone Mount, which is part of the Streams strata. Patrick's also my strata president, but I won't echo those comments because I think they're all said and I agree with all of them. Actually, someone just recently brought up the wildlife corridor. I know that was a concern previously when this project was being discussed, and so I just wanted to echo those as well, and how, if that's been looked at all, or especially once construction starts, like we get a lot of bears in the estuary. Could there be, more human wildlife conflict with all this? Yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. There was, yeah, we can go again. Yeah, I kind of want to get the most questions out we can before, so you can try to address them. Hold on, we'll come back. We'll come back. You did leave some time on the clock, but I know it's a challenge in this space. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak that's spoken only once so far? Yeah, yes, come on up. And just as you're getting ready, I'm going to orient everyone, including council. What we'll do is, after this submission, we'll hear from the proponent again. We'll do questions from council, and then we'll take a quick recess so that we can stretch our legs. We have a little bit of correspondences come in throughout the course of the meeting as well. Make sure we have time to read that before we continue on with our evening. So over to you.
Hi, I'm Murray Sovereign, and I live just over on Pemberton in Marine Estates. I actually came down expecting to have some questions and things, but through the presentations and everything, I think pretty much all my concerns have been addressed. So I just wanted to present just a counterpoint to something that's been brought up a couple of times regarding the crash wall along the rail line and the concern about graffiti. I just want to point out, having seen a few graffiti walls and graffiti alleys in places like Ghent and London and Edinburgh, they're amazing. They're loud and noisy, and if you look closely, yeah, they're kind of offensive, but man, they're spectacular. So, rather than investing an awful lot of time and effort and money in trying to hold back the tide, maybe just strip down to your skivvies and dive in. It could be, the biggest problem might be just the number of people trespassing on the CN right of way to view the graffiti walls. So yeah, I wouldn't make that too big of a concern. Other than that, I'm really impressed with everything I've seen tonight. So thank you all.
Thank you very much for your submission. Pro graffiti. So I'll have the proponent had her hand up to make an additional submission, and then we'll go to council.
To clarify a couple of things. One, we're not building a theater for it to sit empty. It's going to be a business, and it's going to run, and it will have a full board. Some of the people in this room will be on that board, but there's also going to be a management team. I've been on the Worcester Film Festival board for the last 15 years. I know what the arts needs to make things happen, and it's hard to raise money and it's hard to make things happen. But our goal is that this will be a business, much like the Hollywood Theatre in Vancouver. If you get a chance to check out their events, it's the reason we have retractable seating.
They do casino events as fundraisers. They do dinner theater. They do all sorts of things there because they thought it out and made it a business. So this is a business for us too. It's a legacy business. Okay, that's one thing. And I don't think my family want to run it, so I'm probably going to have to hire someone. The parkade is important to us because we think it's going to give the people an opportunity to come to the theater in the evening and have an easy place to park where we can give them a deal to park, $5 park. We're going to also work with the daycare to potentially daycare the kids at night if you come to the theater. So we've given a lot of deep thought to this, which you can't see in a presentation in an hour or two. And so I want you to understand, we are community people. I know many of the people in this room. I've been here a long time, and we're not going to create a monolithic, ugly-looking parking garage. I would love to bring artists in. I've talked to Native artists. I've talked to different people about helping us make a character here, a flavor, if you will. And so this isn't just a bricks and mortar thing to us. This is a building of, you know, the apartment buildings are really cool. The Hudson Villas are, you know, double stacked townhomes. It's going to have a really nice flavor for the people that want to sell their homes up in Garibaldi Highlands and move downtown. They can walk to the liquor store, the grocery store. They can walk to Shoppers Drug Mart. It's easy. So that's the whole idea behind this, is infill densification when people don't need a car, but we have enough parking for them to park. So every unit in our building has 2 parking stalls if it's required, and they have enough to manage all the bylaws that you have in place. So I just wanted to make that clear. This is not, you know, just throw it up there and run out of town. We're still in town. We're in business here and have been since the 90s. So I appreciate your thoughts, and anything that you have as comments, we will definitely take into account. But we have an award-winning architect. We have Kindred Construction, who've done business here for years. We have people who are aware of contract management. They know how their men should and girls should operate. And I don't think you're going to see us coming in here and raping town, if you will, because, you know, there have been comments that we're just coming in and taking away. That's not the goal here. So if you have questions, I'm very sincere about that. Please call me. I'd love to talk to you about it. And anything that you're concerned about, I'm happy to work with you. So thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. So, council, any questions through to staff? I'll start with Councillor Greenlaw this time and go that way. I'm trying to. No, you're good, Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, there have been some questions about construction management, and I heard there's a construction management strategy as part of this. We also have noise bylaws. I'm just wondering if we were to change those, is this the sort of thing that would be grandfathered under today's standards? And so with the noise bylaws, but also strategies, what's the ability to adapt over time with both of those?
Through the mayor, I can't speak specifically to the noise management bylaw, but at least the construction impact mitigation strategy is typically a living document that is required prior to the issuance of servicing agreement. So prior to construction of offsite works and or prior to the issuance of building permit, whichever comes first. And the idea is that we get a clear plan in place prior to authorizing any construction that we think would have an impact on, I guess, transportation corridors or nearby residents. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the goal is that that is a living document that can be updated at staff's discretion. And so, you know, if we start to receive a number of complaints around anything from dust on the roads to construction vehicles parking or staging in areas they shouldn't, to sidewalks being occupied or closed where we haven't allowed those things to happen, that we can go through and require changes to be made throughout the duration of the construction project itself.
And then just so expectations are clear, we wouldn't expect no impacts from construction. We would look for reasonable management, and I suppose the devil's in the details, and some it's where the council of the day may hear about what people are deeming as reasonable, but that's the sort of, big project will be some impact, but we try and manage it as is reasonable or best we can. Is that a fair sort of high level assessment of the goal?
Through the mayor, that is correct. I think the goal is to come up with a strategy that mitigates the impact and can get ahead of it as best possible, so that we're not trying to deal with any concerns retroactively.
Okay, I'm going to come back this way. Councillor Greenlaw.
Yeah, sorry. I was just wondering if staff could comment on the wildlife connectivity piece.
Good evening, through the chair. I'm Jordan, the manager of environmental services. The site did recently have an approved bioinventory assessment. I was just looking back at the report. There were field visits in 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23. So quite comprehensive field work of the site. And the site's qualified environmental professional had noted that the site's used potentially for as cover for transit through the area, but there's no real evidence of a primary wildlife corridor through the site that was observed through the field visits.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor French, you're good for now. Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. I'm just wondering if staff can speak to where the direction of traffic Bailey Street, I guess going north, falls in our transportation master plan, who owns that road and access to it, especially in cases of emergency egress.
This is the gravel section we heard about. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. Through the mayor. So that section of road, we don't have a road right of way, and so it's not actually the district's land, and so it is not part of our road network and isn't identified in our transportation master plan as a priority to acquire. We do have an agreement with CN that it can be used in emergency scenarios, and so our public works crews and I believe emergency responders would have keys to be able to open it and redirect traffic as needed, but it's not intended as part of our immediate, or there's no immediate plans for it to be a part of our transportation network.
Thank you for that clarity. And then my other question is around the changes that happened between second reading and this evening, which increased the height for Lot B and reduced the amount of commercial space. Am I right that that was done predominantly in order to provide the flexibility for the proponent in a trade-off for the road reservation covenant presented on that site?
Through the mayor, that is correct.
I guess my question on this is it feels like we're securing a lot of half options on the transportation improvements, but nothing that's like super tangible. So we're keeping all of our options open, the long-term opportunity for third. The improvements at Bailey and Cleveland would have to happen before phase 2, but they're not secured in terms of the developer providing those. They would need to be done before development could occur, but that would likely be paid for by the district and whatever DCCs we have at the time. And so I guess I'm just curious how we ensure that there are improvements to the transportation network with the addition of density on this site.
Yeah, so there are improvements that have been secured. The frontage improvements, the multi-use path along Bailey Street up Cleveland Avenue, the connection, the multi-use path connection, and the road right of way that would provide the Third Avenue extension have all been secured through, or would be secured through this rezoning. The total density on Lot B is staying the same, so there's not an actual increase. It's really just a change of form to account for the same amount of density. And then the Cleveland and Bailey Street intersection improvements were limited with what's in our development DCC bylaw. And so essentially, because it's identified as a project in our DCC bylaw, we can require the development to construct it, but there still is credit for DCC, I guess credits that are paid by that development. So it's balancing within the scope of what the tools that we have.
Okay, Councillor Anderson, any questions? No. Councillor Hamilton, you're good. We've talked a little bit about quite a bit about transportation, and not to put you on the spot, but I think another part of this is, folks are feeling the changes and the growth. I think the Laurelwood Pemberton Bridge is another piece in this. I know it's not part of this application, but can we speak to timelines with that project at this point in time, as far as an alternate exit to downtown?
Through the mayor, yes. The additional access that would provide a connection from Pemberton Avenue to Laurelwood across the Mampcamp Blind Channel, and then provide access up to the Highway 99 Clark intersection is currently currently a project that staff are actively working on, and we're working towards a target of having it constructed by 2030. In 2025, we applied for some external grant funding that would pay for a portion of that, and the rest of the funding of that is still being confirmed. So it was identified in the approved 10-year financial plan as an unfunded DCC project, but with the expectation that if we are successful with this grant funding, we will figure out a way to fund that project. And so we're working towards that timeline, hoping that we will be successful.
Okay, thank you. I think that's useful context as we're talking about transportation to and from the downtown. So, Council, we'll take a recess to stretch your legs. We also have received a few pieces of correspondence throughout this, so there'll be opportunity to read those. Let's take we'll take, I think 10 minutes should be enough. If we haven't had time, if the correspondence is lengthy, I haven't dug into it yet, we may need to extend that just to make sure that we all have the
public hearing, so we can't receive it.
So we'll do another round of submissions, but on the break, if we cannot engage with council on this, it's a strange social thing you don't normally have to do, but we need to do that to ensure the process and that everyone in the room hears the answer to whatever the inquiries may be. So we'll take a 10-minute recess and we'll reconvene shortly. So stretch your legs. Thank you. Okay, so we'll call the meeting back to order. We've heard some submissions, we've had questions from council. If there's anyone else that would like to make an additional submission, now would be the time to identify yourself. I do also have a script to read through at the end of the process if you'd like to. Would you like to go in? Yep, absolutely. That's what we're here. That's what we're here to do. And I saw that was your hand as well. Okay. Yep. We'll go until we hear from everybody. So go ahead.
Hi, council and staff. Thanks for listening to me again. My name's Megan. As I said, I live on Eagle Wind. My first piece is actually about the railway. Obviously, the CN main line runs directly alongside this development site that we know very well. And CN recently announced the discontinuance of operations north of Squamish to 100 Mile. But the North Vancouver to Squamish is being retained. So the picture of that railway being used is not going away. But it could potentially look more complex. I know this is a really big issue and it's related to a lot of your other work, but I just wanted to flag that it could actually look like the freight volume increasing. Columbia Rail is conducting the due diligence and seeking track sharing rates with the Port of Squamish, and then also the provincial government committing to developing a business plan for commuter rail service, which on a side note I think would be amazing. But that is a proposal, that's something that could take place. I don't know when, but it is proposed. So just in terms of that, has the rail safety assessment accounted for potential future passenger service, not just the current freight operations? I know right now there's obviously not that many trains that go through, but with the uncertainty of what the railway could look like, I'm curious if that's been taken into account, just in terms of safety, but in terms of how that affects the construction as well. Obviously, I know emergency response has been something that we've kind of touched upon, but I'm curious for residents in the event of a derailment or a chemical spill. I know there is the wall that is being proposed, but the more trains, the more opportunity there is for something to go wrong. And yeah, if it's kind of just taking into consideration appropriate to keep moving forward before we know the long-term future of the corridor. And then on the topic of CN, I know they are incredibly hard to work with and get answers out of. But if CN hypothetically is to never approve that crossing, what is the traffic plan for the 230 homes and nearly 10,000 square meters of commercial space that's being proposed? I just had one more piece. This has been touched on a lot, but I just wanted to flag it. Like I said, I had some time to go through the council report in detail, and I'm curious just with the phasing, who bears the cost if DCC reserves remain inadequate? So doing some quick math, in the section 6 in financial implications on the Cleveland Bailey intersection upgrade with the TIA, that's a $10.2 million budget that's currently underfunded. And then the report itself says the timing might not align with phase 2. And then the Third Avenue extension adds on another $5.5 million. So if that $15.7 million in infrastructure doesn't come to fruition in the timeline, what would that look like with this moving forward? That's it.
Thank you very much. Okay, go ahead.
Hi. Again, my name is Sash Wood. My question is relatively similar to Megan's in regard to, I know we are increasing density to get access to federal money and provincial and increase with the Canadian-wide plan. But it seems from this meeting that we're actually relying very much heavily on developers to sort of fit the bill. And my question is if there's can be any transparency on where that current budget that we acquired federally has gone towards the greater district and the densification / traffic / whole plan that's been put forth. And if council can be a bit more transparent on where that money has gone so far.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep, go ahead, sir. No, no, yep.
Hi, I just want to bring up the construction management again. I felt like it wasn't totally addressed. The reason I bring it up because I'm the first house on Buckley and I lived through the construction of Jumar. And it was a nightmare for me, like on every level. I won't get on into all the specific reasons here. And I complained like over and over. Nothing was done ever. So I don't ever want to have to live through that again. So that was my first point. It was poorly managed, the construction of Jumart, and since I'm so close to that building, it's a big concern of mine. The other thing I just wanted to ask was about the road from Third to Buckley. I know a lot of words have been said on it, so excuse me, I'm a bit of a simpleton, but is there actually an understanding with CN, an email, something on paper that will go through, or is it more just of a, we'll take a look at it? The reason I bring that up is because I was at the last one of these meetings and there was a CN representative here, and she wasn't part of the meeting, but she was sitting in the crowd and I was talking to her, and she said that there's no way that would ever go through. Those were her words, not mine. So I know it's been up here and things have been said about it, but I'm curious if there's actually been something on paper about that going through. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to make a submission at this point? Yeah, come on up.
How you doing? Kenny Dempsey, Kendrick Construction. I just want to address the management plan for construction. I will do everything in my power not to annoy any neighbor. It is the worst part of my job, having to respond to locals, to council, to people about how loud we are. We will be loud, unfortunately, at times, but we will manage that. At Kindred, through all of our projects, we generally build things right next door to other people and other developments. We engage with the community. We send out emails. We notify people when loud things are happening. We look to find ways that we're to minimize the amount of noise impact on the local community. And where it has to happen, we upfront tell people it's going to happen and try and work around it. So I'll give you my word, if we're still involved, that we will do everything we can to limit it. Another point I want to bring up that came up and it kind of got talked about, the children crossing. I have kids of my own around Squamish here. There's so many kids. We will do everything to make sure that every child can pass through the site every day at any time of the day in a safe manner and not be affected by construction. So just want to make that clear. We won't let anything happen to any child when that's going on. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I'll come back. I'm trying to, yeah. So is there anyone else that wishes to make a submission? I have a hand for an additional time, but I'm not seeing any, so I will go back to you. And I want to avoid just too much like in reply, just so that council can pick up the questions, but just to.
Sorry, it came forth when construction manager came forth. Is there any consideration of, because of the phasing, the rest of the lot is relatively useless or not being used at all? Is there any consideration of using the rest of the site for construction staging and putting trucks actually on site and not on the street? I live in Eaglewind, and Polygon workers, trucks and everything are literally in all the parking spaces on the street. They're not on site by any stretch of the means. So I'm just wondering whether we actually leverage the site or if that is even possible. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any other hands. I think I've been through the list. I'm going to go to council for questions, and we'll go back to the room just to make sure that we've really flushed this out. Council, I'll start over at Councillor French this time and just come down. Are there any questions that come from up for you? No, not at this point. Councillor Pettingill.
Just a little bit of a procedure or confirmation, because we have had some emails coming in. If we can just get a confirmation, I've tried to refresh about just confirming I've seen all, like, what is the last time emails have come in, so I know I've read them all.
Okay, I will. We'll, as we work towards conclusion, we'll make sure that we understand that. Anything, Councillor Greenlaw? No. Going down the table. I'll go to Councillor Stoner first, and then I'll come.
Yeah, thanks. So the chair, I just wonder if staff can speak to our process and procedure if folks are using public roads or public spaces for construction staging?
So we require a work permit for any use of district property for construction, staging, parking, boulevard occupation, sidewalk closures, et cetera, et cetera. That's typically covered prior to the servicing agreement or building permit.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Anderson? Nope. Go ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks. I like trying to put decisions where decisions belong. There's a lot of concern been expressed about the construction management phase, and I absolutely understand that. When I'm thinking about this development, however, we're talking right now at a rezoning phase. We're talking about what use is going to be allowed on that property long term. So is construction management typically a condition of rezoning, or is it something that's later in our bylaws and handled at a later stage normally?
Through the mayor, it is something that is typically handled in the details at a later stage, but it's not uncommon for a site of this size and scale to have those early discussions about construction. And just given the comments that were received this evening, I just want to clarify a few things that have been discussed with the proponent. And the proponent is planning to, because of the phase nature of this development, which is different than an example such as Jumar was brought up, we do have the applicant does have the ability to use certain sites to be the construction staging while other sites are being built. In particular, for the lot B, which is that middle phase, the plan is to essentially use lot A, which is that front lot A, which is at the corner of Bailey and Cleveland, to do most of the staging for that development and to have very little impact on the roads and impact on any kind of parking in that area. And then as the development progresses, the staging area will get a bit smaller on lot A, but as you know, as we noted, building 1, which is that commercial office building, is the last phase. So the idea is that that will continue to be the main staging area for any site construction trucks and things like that, or people to come to the site, so that they're not using district roads or public parking.
Are you good for now, Councillor? Yep. There's a question around the rail regulations, and I just wanted to check, do those regulations work in such a way where if we see 1 train a week, this is the set of rules? If we see 50 trains a day, is not something that we're going to see. But if we see 50 trains a day, there's another level of requirement, or is it there's a train, therefore these are the requirements? I just want to make sure that we're addressing this like potential change in volume and so on that we've been hearing.
Thank you for the question. Just to clarify, are you speaking about the crash barrier? Okay, so that's
not necessarily the crossing. It's a separate issue, but the crash barriers, like those considerations, and I suppose potentially the crossing, but that wasn't where I was starting.
So through the chair, yes, the guidelines that we consider when looking at applications that are in proximity to rail lines are provided by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and they do distinguish between what they consider a primary line versus a branch line, and further distinguish between main lines and branch lines and primary lines and secondary lines. This is not necessarily the purview or expertise of the District of Squamish's engineering department. This is something that the proponent would hire a consulting engineer, and they would provide an assessment that takes into account the speeds, frequencies, and weight of trains, as well as the nature of if they're freight trains versus passenger trains, and considers all of those scenarios before proposing any form of design as it would impact the site's development.
And that has already occurred.
Yeah, if I may, so just to add to that is those designs in the guidelines, they require that they're designed at building permit. So those specific professionals will be reviewing the rail use and ensuring that the crash wall designs are being built to those standards. And those assurances are built into the land development agreement that those are done.
Okay, and then does staff have the ability at that point to ensure that those standards aren't based on the traffic, exclusively on the traffic we're seeing today, but on some reasonable assumption of, historical traffic that we may again see on the line? Or how do we handle that piece? Because if it's taken at this, my concern is if it's taken at this moment in time piece, there may not be the right regulation in the long term.
Yeah, so the consultant at the time of that design would be reviewing the rail corridor at that time. It's not at this time currently.
Okay, but staff would have the ability to ensure to check that we're getting the assumptions are reasonable given the historical use and what may occur in future.
Yeah, just as my colleague had mentioned, that we're not professionals in that realm, so we don't review or approve those reports, but we can certainly make sure that they're present and that they're accurate.
Okay. Council, any other questions? Councillor Pettingill, go ahead.
Yeah, it's been discussed that phase 5, the primary commercial phase is at the end, and there isn't at least in the current market, that sort of, I guess, carrot you might say of residential afterwards. So if we were to look at the commercial ratio up to phase 4, where are we relative to our policy on commercial versus residential mix if we exclude phase 5? Or do we have a sense of what that gap is? Like, does phase 5 really need to happen to hit our sort of policy ratio?
Yeah, through the mayor, we're just discussing if we are aware of a policy ratio that we have that commits a certain amount of commercial to residential, and we don't believe we have that. With the theater and the childcare, those are all considered commercial employment spaces, and they will, I believe it's just roughly shy of half of the commercial area that's proposed in the development would make up those prior to phase 4, which is that last residential phase.
So do we, I know that theater is sort of an unusual thing, but when we have daycare, do we normally consider that as part of the sort of commercial space when we're doing our calculations? And I know in some cases we have, in some of our policy, and I can't remember where we do talk about 25% or whatever percentage commercial, and I'm just...
Thank you. Through the chair, we have historically looked at commercial space ratios to a maximum of 30% mixed-use developments because of previous financing regimes. Things have changed now. It's moved more towards you can't get financing for a mixed-use project above 20% commercial. It's the current day, and it's our understanding, but we don't necessarily have a secured policy to that ratio. I believe in C4, it's about 20%, but it does vary in areas of the community. And then I would also add childcare is considered a commercial use when we are evaluating uses in a project, commercial versus residential, sorry.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands at council. So I'm going to go to my script here, but there will be opportunities. So if there are no further speakers and council has already asked for additional information from the planning department. So now that everyone has been given a reasonable opportunity to be heard, it is a requirement that I ask 3 times if there's anyone else who wishes to speak before we close the public hearing. So for the first time, is there anyone else who wants to speak or make a submission? Okay, come on up. You have 3 minutes. You can use as much of or as little of it as you would like, sir.
I'm Patrick Henry again with Eaglewind and Stream Strata and the Eaglewind EHOA. And I just appreciate that everyone brought up the lack of consideration for what the traffic impact will have on our private roads, which they technically are. We do have signs that say no private roads, but I'm not a big believer in that signs really do much. We do have lots of speed bumps. People will seemingly try to speed through them. That again becomes our issue. I just want that to be, I just suggest that if it can be considered and the impact, and I know I've spoken with Anne specifically on a few other matters and she's been very gracious and we've worked well together on a couple other things. So I just think it would be, just for us to be considered for that. And again, I mean, I wasn't involved when it was the EHOA was formed, and I don't know if that's another thing in Squamish. I know it's popular in other areas. From what I do understand that, if it was to be gated or something similar, like it is possible. I know it would be a real pain in the butt, but I just think that the impacts of what we're going to do out there are going to be significant. And I would just ask that it is to be thought about amongst everyone that's involved. And then other than that, I know that there's no straight answer for it, and I already brought it up. And I know that we've talked about a lot of other issues, which they're all very important. But again, I just want to say or ask where all the extra cars are going to go. I know there's not an answer for it, but it will be an issue. And it's not just for the new people. It's not just for the people who live here, and it'll be for the people in polygons. So anyways, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm going to, after I close the public hearing, we can't do more questions. So I'm going to take a couple of those pieces just to, the question on the parking that's provided. At a recent meeting, we were asked to vary the length of a stall, and so we didn't really get into specifics about that type of thing here. I know that's later development permit when that example happened, but are the spots that are provided, what standard are they to? Are these like Tacoma spots, or are these smart car spots? And what does that look like from a functionality perspective, which I think is sort of a key piece of this. And I'll ask about garage storage in the places that have more close, or what storage looks like as well. So I think they're 2 related issues.
Yeah, so to answer the questions just around stall sizes, the areas of Lot B and Lot C are actually outside of our downtown parking area. And so they would have to meet a higher standard of parking stalls, which I don't have the exact numbers at the top of my head, but are the larger stalls that we currently have in our regulation, and not the common stall size that we see predominantly in our downtown core. So that is one of the considerations. Another consideration just with parking generally is we do see that there is more flexibility with shared parkades in apartment buildings and less issues of overflow parking as a result of apartment buildings, because parking stalls can be shared amongst units and users. So if one unit only needs 2, they can pay for those 2. If one unit only needs 1, it opens up another stall for someone else to purchase a stall, where we don't have that same flexibility with townhouse designs, which is why we have seen some challenges in our townhouse neighborhoods. And so this isn't intended to add to that issue by adding apartments which offer more flexibility for parking.
Okay, thank you. And just on the storage thing, which I know isn't necessarily as big an issue here as far as impacting the parking because of predominant parkade situation, but what accommodation is there for the residents here that are the folks living in these that would like to participate in all things Squamish that require gear? Like how has that been considered in the design?
Yeah, we don't have any regulation in our zoning bylaw that regulates storage. We actually don't have the legislative power to do that. What we do require is bike parking, and we make sure we provide ample amount of that for residents to address some of those storage needs. Typically, the proponents, to be successful in the sales of their units, are going to offer storage within their units to account for those needs, Squamish residents.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll go back to my scripts. Now that everyone has been given a reasonable opportunity to be heard, it is a requirement that I ask 3 times if there's anyone else who wishes to speak before we close the public hearing. So for the first time, is there anyone else that wishes to speak or make a submission? For the second time, is there someone else who wishes to speak or make a submission? And for a third and final time, is there anyone else who wants to speak or make a submission? I will declare the hearing closed. Thank you very much to everybody for your submissions and the thoughtful conversation we've had here tonight. Please note that council members are not permitted to receive any further submissions or hear either a proponent or opponent to an application once the public hearing has concluded. This means we can't speak to you out in the community or receive emails or phone calls on any of the bylaws until a decision on the bylaws has been made. We can chat about other things, but we can't talk about that. Any and all communications from this point must be channeled through to staff. So thank you very much. So Council, our next, we do have on our agenda the ability to consider third reading at this point in time. And I'll get you good clarity on to make sure that we've received all the correspondence. So, and then we'll consider the third reading. So, could someone just run through? So, the council package is up to date. If you go out and back in, and we'll just double check that everyone's had opportunity to, because it's been added to the electronic agenda package for the public as well as they've come in. So if everyone wants to just have a look, I believe 6:15 was the last one. So I think we haven't received anything since the break. So has everyone's had opportunity to consume those? Okay. So with that in mind, we do have the ability to consider third reading at this point in time. Council, I wouldn't expect an additional presentation. We've just been through this at length. So is there someone are we ready to consider a motion on this? Councillor Hamilton, are you moving the staff recommendation?
I'll move the staff recommendation, third reading.
Councillor Anderson seconds. Go ahead. Would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, thanks very much. Thank you, first of all, to all the people who wrote in, who came in, and who really applied their mind and spent their time thinking about this application. I think that every application that comes across our tables, there are trade-offs. Yeah. In the long run, I'm supportive of this development because I believe that infill density, particularly in our downtown, is the path forward for our community to become more livable and more affordable. I think it's a critical piece for our community to accept that infill density is going to be required so that we may have 5 more neighbors, but at least we don't live 5 more blocks away from a forest. That's not to say that density is a utopia. It's absolutely not. It has its challenges. A lot of the interim challenges have been identified through the construction process. We have heard lots about challenges with construction processes in our downtown area. And I think that that's something for us to do better as a district on our policies and our management of that. It's for construction companies to do better on how they manage their noise and their impacts on other people, but it's not for a rezoning decision. A rezoning decision is a long-term question. And from the long-term question that I've heard from most folks here, a big piece of this is where do we put our cars and how do we get our cars from A to B? I think we need to accept that our cars are a big piece of the challenge of density And I'm not saying everybody needs to get rid of their cars, but cars are really a big challenge in our density. That's a big challenge in our affordability. And so I think I'd like to ask everybody, when they're thinking about parking impacts, ask yourself, what is my impact having on the community around me when I need to park my car as well? Thanks.
Thank you. I'll go to you, Councillor Anderson, as seconder.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to comment on some dialogue that's taken place, not so much here this evening, but in other venues in the public, among the public, and that is the issue of encroachment on the estuary. I'd just like to point out that under the Estuary Management Plan, there were trade-offs, and this area is not zoned to be protected under that plan. It's zoned for development under the Estuary Management Plan. And that's a trade-off that allowed us to obtain and protect the wildlife management area that we have today. So that was just something to note. That's part of the history. I really appreciate, in particular, Patrick Henry's observations, education for us regarding the private strata roads and the impacts that we're going to have to monitor in future. For example, if we have a signalized higher capacity intersection at Beeley and Cleveland, that may change through flows. There's other things that we may do in the neighborhood that may change those through flows, something that we need to be mindful of. And I appreciated those observations. The Third Avenue to Buckley vehicle access, that it has some uncertainties, and not least the ones that have been mentioned regarding the legalities and feasibility, but also the impacts that some members of the public have drawn attention to, the congestion that already exists there, and the safety issues that we need to be mindful of. The parking is, I counted 110 vehicles tonight, and I heard that there's up to 120 along Bailey Street. This is, we're going to have some new commercial space and parking demands that may result from that. I do not see a solution here for our downtown or even northern part of downtown general parking needs. I think we're going to have to consider additional facilities, perhaps in connection with our planning of the downtown entrance study area. This is a report in my hands here. The Squamish Arts Future Needs Study has been cited in the staff report, but in fact, despite the title, it wasn't a needs assessment. As staff themselves and members of Representative of the Arts Council have noted, it didn't deliver a needs assessment. Instead, it was, to summarize, when Squamish knows what it needs for a performing arts center, where and how to pay for it, here are some scalable design solution examples. That's what that report did. It did not deliver a needs assessment. We're still needing to conduct that assessment together with the arts community. We have it as a to-do in our Arts, Culture, and Heritage Strategy from 6 years ago now. Item 6.4 tells us that we need to undertake a needs assessment for cultural facilities. We haven't done so. So the Eagle Eye Theatre needs attention and investment. It has management issues. Maybe dollars from this development might have gone there. Maybe we should be building a library on Bailey Street. All of these blue sky questions should be discussed already, and I think we need to give attention to them. We will see delivery, hopefully, of this hybrid theater in phase 3, but there's lots we need to do in the meantime, and not least in our planning for cultural facilities. We need to avoid ad hoc cultural and recreational facilities planning, and I do see this as partly ad hoc, so we can be optimally ready, for example, for partnerships with private developers such as the developers we're working with tonight. So the hybrid theater design can accommodate flexible use or be repurposed from theater auditorium use in future. And I really appreciate this. This sells it for me. It's a good adaptive design solution. Finally, our developers here have been through an 11-year journey and in addressing a challenging site. And I think that there's been much to appreciate in the approach they've taken, in the dialogue that they participated in and fostered. I'm speaking in favor of this development as staff have presented it. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments, Council? Go ahead, Councillor French.
Thank you, Mayor Herford.
It's 8:59, so I'm going to try and be as concise as I can. Thank you to all those who spoke tonight and shared thoughts. We up here tend to speak in public with ease, and I recognize that for most members of the public, it's a big deal to get up in front of a room of people and speak the way many of you have tonight. So thank you for being bold and taking that on. This project is proposing a theater, something that our community has for years been begging for. It also delivers much needed daycare space, a public parking garage, employment space, 39 affordable housing units that are much in need, and about 190 market housing units that I guarantee you will have new occupants in them before the paint is dry. It also gets us closer to connecting 3rd Avenue to Buckley Avenue, a downtown connection that I support and think is important for future emergency considerations and potential evacuations of the downtown. It is an ongoing discussion with the rail gods to actually get that, but this gets us at least a little bit closer to potentially having that connection for vehicles. And a quick tangent on the hybrid theater. In being excited for this future theater, I want to make sure we don't get distracted by this shiny new facility and neglect Eagle Eye Theater. I see these two theaters working in conjunction with each other. Eagle Eye Theater needs a little attention and maybe a lot of attention, and for sure some love. That, though, is a conversation for another day. And for me, this project will deliver for our community some things that we really need, and it makes it easy for me to support the recommendation. So I support 3rd reading of the Village on Bailey Street development.
Thank you so much. Councillor Pettingill, go ahead.
Yeah, still chewing this one over. There's a lot of things I like about it. One piece I've had and I appreciate all the work that's been done and the adjustments that have been made. The theater piece, I've gone back and forth on. I'm not sure, knowing how expensive some of the stuff to outfit this is. I wonder if 20% weekends at not-for-profit cost is going to be accessible, or at least that's part of the dilemma. As I've thought about it more, though, thinking of those same costs, our ability to provide anything of this sort in the near to medium future is maybe even more challenging. And so maybe there is a good argument to let a private operator try and make a go of it. And you know, our local arts organizations will have to sort of figure out, like, this is what this actually costs and how do we make it work. And so maybe looking at it as an opportunity. My understanding is these tend not to be high density employment, and that's the piece I'm probably struggling with the most, is because as we have lots of housing and we have a requirement from the province to do so, that does need to be matched to employment, even if employment is hard to finance at this point in time. Because if we don't have the matching employment, then people do have to get into cars and go somewhere else to work. And then we have traffic and parking and all these things. And so if we aren't aligning those, it is a real challenge. And so I think that's where I'm having the biggest problem here. I was a little bit unsure about the phasing with the sort of carrot of the market housing at various stages. I think I can be comfortable with the phasing. It's just that employment piece, the major employment piece in phase 5 is what I'm still kind of on the fence about. I'm trying to listen to my colleagues and think as I'm hearing people talk, but that's kind of where I am right now.
Thank you. Councillor Greenlaw.
Yeah, thanks to the chair. A big thanks to everybody who came out tonight and spoke and engaged with the system. And thank you to staff for all the hard work you've been putting in this for over a decade. And thank you for the proponent for all the hard work they've been putting in for over a decade. I'm going to be speaking in favor of the motion this evening. And what I really like about this development is that it's clear to me that a significant part of the developer's incentive is to create a long-term legacy to the benefit of our community. I've met with the proponent several times, and I'm confident that she really cares about the experience of the people using and living in this development. I'm very excited about the parkade. As you all know, parking is a contentious conversation at our table. And this is a need that our community's been talking to for longer than I've been sitting in this seat. I'm also very supportive of the theater. Between those two amenities and the affordable housing units, I think this will be a beneficial development for our community, and so I'll be supporting it. I'm also stoked about the 10% of parking stalls having level 2 chargers. And I'm also very much supportive of community artistic collaboration for the buildings. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner.
Thank you. Through the chair, I too will be supporting the motion on the floor this evening. I do think that there's a lot to like with where we've ended up after 11 years of back and forth. As we noted at the start of this, we don't really do public hearings very much anymore because we're actually prohibited from doing them as a result of provincial legislative changes. And part of the reason behind that is because here we are after 11 years in negotiation, and it has been amazing to hear from all of you. And it's really difficult to make changes at the 11th hour on some of the things that have come forward. I think one of the things that I continue to be challenged by with major rezonings of this scale in general is the few tools that we have to actually compel developers to build. We have seen the challenges that results in our community for decades when we provide development rights, increase zoning, and then it takes, and understandably so for a number of reasons, it takes a long time to get all the pieces in place, and then that development doesn't start for another 10 years, and our community has changed substantially since in that time. We have started to engage in conversations around sunset clauses that would require that land development agreement to come back for discussion at a later date. I think that it's too late in the process to introduce that here. I don't think it would be fair to the negotiations that we've had to date. And I do really see a move forward from the proponent in trying to address some of the critical needs that our community has addressed or has requested over time. The proponent and the application before us does meet our community amenity contribution policy from 2023, providing 15% affordable housing, 125 new childcare spaces. It does provide the parking garage, which is something that we know is required downtown in order to address some of our parking challenges. I also think it's important to note that this does sit outside of our downtown parking ratio. So where some of the tension points that we have seen in downtown developments where parking ratio is a 1-to-1, this is outside of that. And so there is more required parking as per our zoning bylaw, and there's no request for a reduction in that parking. I also don't think it's fair. I think I'll rephrase that. The proponent in many ways has been really generous in allowing their site to be used for overflow parking in our downtown core for many years at a free cost. That is their private site. They are able to do what they might want. They have made that available to community, and in their proposal that they have here, they are trying to pivot that into a public pay parking space. And I think that generates a further conversation around the vision of how we address where all the cars go in our downtown core, and how we do the mode shift and how we prioritize on active transportation and car shares so that people don't have to own 2 or 3 vehicles. I understand that a lot of people do, and it's a requirement right now in the way that our community has been built and the lack of not active transportation, but especially the lack of public transportation. And I don't think we should be building in the future for the future that would require that many vehicles. And so how do we support that mode shift? How do we encourage people to share vehicles where possible? In an affordability crisis, we know that owning a vehicle is the second most expensive component of people's cost of living these days. And so for me, this is about trying to find alternatives and supporting diverse forms of housing throughout our community and ensuring that we can support that densification in a way that is livable. I've also heard from our staff this evening that there is forward momentum and movement through our multimodal transportation plan to address some of the core components that will be tension points in the short term. With some strong negotiations with the proponent. Hopefully it will also bring CN to the table for the access across 3rd. and that we will have a strong plan in place by the time phase 2 comes around for improvements to Bailey and Cleveland. I'm getting those names right, yes. And so I think that while it's not 100% certain in this point in time with the rezoning, I do think that the pieces are in place to make sure that that vision comes to fruition as time goes on. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'm also speaking in support of the motion. I'd really like to thank everyone that came out tonight and either made a submission or sat and listened respectfully to the discussion. This, as others have mentioned, this can be we're a friendly group of people, but just the order we need to use and the spaces we operate in can be intimidating. So thank you very much for those that for everybody that's come and had participated tonight. I found the submissions to be well thought out and well intentioned and coming from a place of curiosity, which I think is really important. We've heard, I've been the answers to the questions we've received, both I guess the in the presentation and in the reporting, but also in the discussion tonight, allows me to feel comfortable that we've addressed what we can, and we've pushed as far as we can with this particular step of the process. Should this be successful, and according to my math, we're moving in that direction, there will be subsequent conversations to go deeper into the various issues that will be covered at later steps in the development process. So I think when I think about meeting a threshold for what it would take for me to be supportive, I usually start with what does our policy say, and how close are we? Do we have to squint to see that it just stretches to meet our policy, or is it clearly meet or exceed the requirements? This is a one of the I'd say rare situations where it's quite clear that particularly on the community amenities piece, it far exceeds our what our policy would deliver us otherwise. I think that the access to the theater is quite remarkable. In other scenarios, it's not creating space that goes to the municipality to manage or anything like that. This really is a private operation that is providing this a portion of their time to community to operate in this space. I think that's quite remarkable. And as others have spoken to, particularly Councillor Anderson, around future arts and culture planning and facilities and so on, those planning documents and understanding the needs fulsomely and all that is really, really important to understand what investment should be happening from a municipal perspective. This is really such a remarkable scenario where we have a proponent coming forward to build and run and offer some space in there, some time in the space for community to operate. I think that's a very distinct, different category than investment in arts and culture facilities broadly in the community in the traditional sense, as far as resulting in an asset to the municipality. So also, we touched on many things tonight that just show engaged citizens concerned with how their community operates. And I think some of those I'm happy that this event brought us together to discuss these things. But I will say that if anyone wants to come to a mayor's drop-in or reach out for a meeting with myself, I know my council colleagues often meet with members of the community to discuss any of the things that came up adjacent to this. I'm going to say encampment response is a big one. We have the ongoing rail. I think the rail gods were mentioned down here, but the rail issues around that and what the challenges and opportunities may be there, as well as transportation generally. There's evidence here of folks having read reports. The transportation master plan is really something that I think is relatively recent and will be a sort of a critical piece for us going forward. And I encourage everyone to have a read and I'm also happy to discuss. But it is incredibly important, and we're working on very challenging issues. But on the issues that are pertinent to this specific decision tonight, I'm confident that that this what's proposed here addresses those and exceeds those requirements. So I'm happy to support and move this forward. I'm going to go to you, Councillor Pettingill, for the last word, and then I'm going to call the question.
Yeah, firstly, I would also like to, and I didn't take the opportunity earlier, to thank everyone who came out, listened, had thoughtful comments and questions, and some thorough and thoughtful emails that helped direct some of my questions. So I appreciate that. I did say I wasn't sure where I was going, and so I thought I should maybe comment because I will be supporting this. For me, the employment and putting the employment piece in phase 5 makes me hard for me to count that as meeting my employment expectations. However, this is going above our policy in a number of places. I know there are many requests for a public parkade, and this does that. And while I think there may be a gap between expectations and what's financially achievable in terms of a theater, I think, as I said, that gap is even further for us as a local government for the foreseeable future. And so giving this an opportunity between the developer and the arts community to work, I think means that I can support this. I would say, maybe just as a flag to staff, we've had a couple of conversations around this, and I think from my perspective, council we haven't been unanimous, but has pushed back a bit on the idea of we can waive commercial because it's challenging right now. And I'm certainly not of that opinion generally. And so an impact of this is I will be even less receptive to other applications coming forward looking to have less commercial. So I'll just sort of plant that stake in the ground now. But I think as a total package, this is an unusual package of things with the theater, the parkade, and so on, the amount of affordable housing that I think I do need to support this. Thank you.
And with that, I will call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. I would like to move that we terminate this meeting, second by Councillor Stoner, and I'm going to assume that that's a unanimous vote. All in favor. Thank you.